We are live. We are all go. No, we're not. We're not. Now we are. Welcome to our second full Zoom, full council. So, and we've got a slight variation this time because we are starting with a special council meeting, which I will deal with first. And then we will move on to the formal business of the full council meeting. So these meetings, as you know, are being webcast so that residents and other members of the public have the chance to see it live or to view it on demand later if they wish. And that means all of you can sit and watch it all over again if you want to. And can I ask you to please refer to the guidance you received from the webcasting manager for guidance on the conduct of the remote meeting throughout. As at the last meeting, apart from Janie, our monitoring officer, no officers will be on camera. And actually, Janie isn't on camera this time round, although she is linked in to the meeting and we can call on her, but her internet's a bit iffy today. But we will call on her if we need to speak to us specifically. And it helps to manage the public view more effectively, because of course, for most people, you can't see what I can see, which is every single person who is attending. As usual, I would remind everyone to behave respectfully and appropriately whilst on camera. We have got motions lined up for debate tonight, and I hope we can have a good, productive debate, and we will try to enable as many members as possible to have their say. I intend to take one break tonight during our main meeting. At an appropriate point, I am looking at around 8 o'clock for about 15 minutes. And when the break is called, you can switch off your video camera and go away and do what on earth you like. I have to remind everybody that just because we are on Zoom does not mean that you have to sit there for the duration. If any of you feel the need to take a comfort break during the meeting without waiting for the formal break, please feel free, because we aren't going to stop anything happening. Or if you want to just get up and wander around your front room or your kitchen or your attic or wherever you are, please, again, feel free. If I can remind you, when we are in the full council chamber, people often get up and go and stand at the back, or they go and stand in the kitchen, or they go to the loo. It is a meeting at which you are allowed to move around. So don't feel too constrained to just sit there. But I will call a proper break so that we can switch off and do whatever we need to do. And if that is all understood, are we all okay with that? I shall move straight to our special meeting to appoint 2 new Honorary Freemen. And when we have done that, we will move on to the ordinary meeting. I have only, I think, received apologies from one councillor tonight, unless there is anybody else that needs to be mentioned. But I've had apologies from Councillor Wells for both meetings, the special meeting and the ordinary meeting. Are there any other apologies? Can I please ask everybody, including myself, to turn your mobile phones to silent, to mute any other electronic equipment, and to try and make sure it doesn't happen, as it does so often in my house, that my husband comes and tries to have long conversations with me while I am trying to do Zoom, and waving at him and saying, go away, seems to effect nothing whatsoever. But anyway, please try and keep the interruptions to the minimum. The special meeting of the council has been convened to deal with a motion to confer the title of Honorary Freeman of the City of York upon two people, Alison Sinclair and Delma Tomlin. Under Section 2491 of the Local Government Act 1972, the Council has the power to grant the title of Honorary Freeman of the City of York, and this honour must be conferred at a special meeting of the Council. And I now invite the leader, Councillor Aston, to move the motion to grant the title of Honorary Freeman of the City of York upon Alison Sinclair and Delma Tomlin, MBE, in recognition of their respective services to the City of York as set out in the Special Council agenda. Councillor Aston.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Given that we're almost 8 days away from Christmas, as I'm sure everybody will know from the amount of chocolate left in their advent calendars, I'm particularly pleased to begin proceedings this evening by proposing this motion. For those who are not familiar, as already outlined by the Lord Mayor with Section 249 of the Local Government Act, the Council may lawfully appoint a person or persons who have, in its opinion, rendered eminent services to the city. York has a rich history of freemen, with records dating back to 1272, making it an honour of historical importance and one that is rarely awarded. Only 2 women have been awarded this honour since 2002, Dame Judi Dench in 2002 and Joyce Pickard in 2007. Therefore, as leader of the council, I'm delighted to nominate 2 outstanding individuals to receive the honorary freedom of the City of York and become honorary freemen, Delma Tomlin, MBE, and Alison Sinclair. I have spoken to both Delma and Alison to congratulate them, and although there will be a civic event with the Lord Mayor to formally recognise the award next year, I wanted to say a few words. Delma's contribution to music and culture in our city over the past 40 years has been remarkable. In her career, Delma has secured significant funding for the National Centre for Early Music, and in 2000 was awarded an honorary doctorate by the University of York in recognition of her work in the city. In 2018, Delma became Cultural Ambassador for the City of York, and in 2022 will become the first ever female governor of the Company of Merchant Adventurers, the first since the company's creation in 1357. Delma has truly been an asset to our city and somebody worthy of being awarded the freedom of the city. Alison has made major contributions to York's internationally recognised heritage. Alison was an instrumental part in creating York's Open Planning Forum, which oversaw the creation of our local list in order to help preserve the city's architecture. Alison has also shared her knowledge as a visiting fellow at the University of York and played a key part in the creation of the Friends of Rowntree Park, ensuring the park was revitalised for the community. I'm sure you'll all agree that this outstanding contribution to our heritage and culture deserves recognition. It is therefore with great pleasure, Lord Mayor and councillors, that I propose this motion to nominate both Delma Tomlin and Alison Sinclair to receive the honorary freedom of the City of York. Thank you.
Thank you. I now call upon Councillor Danny Myers to second the motion.
Thank you.
Councillor Myers?
Yes, thank you, Lord Mayor. I am pleased to second the motion to formally recognise Alison Sinclair and Delma Tomlin as honorary free persons of the City of York. I want to thank both Alison and Delma for the many years of work for the city and for our residents. And also I express my gratitude respectively to those responsible for their nominations. I would be humbled to properly discuss the effects of both of your work and the insights you certainly have to share at a time in the future when we're able to do so over a nice cuppa, if you would be willing. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Myers. I don't propose to take any further comments on this. Can I, on this occasion, we'll come to voting later, but can I, on this occasion, work on the basis that you could show your hands so that very clearly, wave them in the air so that we can see if there is anybody who is against this proposal? Please may I see your votes now? In favour. Are there votes against, abstentions? Please wave. We're trying to, hold your hands up, please. We're trying to make sure. Yes, can you just show your support? Councillor Baker, are you in favour of this or are you abstaining? Councillor Keith Orrell? Yeah. Councillor Taylor, no, he's voted. Right, I'm going to take that we are as a council agreed on this proposal. And I have to say, on a very personal level, it gives me huge pleasure to see these two names coming forward. I know both of them really quite well, and it will be amazing to have the special civic presentation, which will be arranged as soon as we can get it sorted out and be able to do it properly. So thank you all very much. Sorry, Councillor Lomas, you were waving?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I appreciate the opportunity to make a very brief comment. I absolutely welcome the award of this honour to these two women whose accomplishments are indeed great. However, I feel duty bound to note that perhaps there is a reason why so few women have been nominated for this honour in the last 2 decades. All research shows that when a role, an honour, a title is pointlessly gendered in a way that is not necessary, women do not see themselves as worthy of that honour or as able to carry out that role, even when they can see for themselves evidence right in front of them that women indeed do carry out that role, as with your own role, Lord Mayor. I think it would be such a wonderful thing for us to be able to do, to bestow honours on people who have such amazing accomplishments without linking that to somebody else's gender.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lomas. We will note your point and we will, it'll be an opportunity to actually review. I think the number of women have been more than was mentioned by Councillor Aston. I have seen a number of women go through the system, but we do need to do a gender analysis, and I take your point entirely. That concludes the business of the special meeting, so thank you all very much. And we will move seamlessly on to the ordinary meeting. I forbore last time because we had such huge pressure of business. I refrained from giving you a poem, but I can't resist it for Christmas. And I've thought of a number of variations, and I've come up tonight with something that seems to me giving us something peaceful and contemplative to go forward to for 2021. And I will give you William Butler Yeats' The Lake Isle of Innisfree. I will arise and go now and go to Innisfree, and a small cabin build there of clay and wattles made. 9 bean rows will I have there, a hive for the honeybee, and live alone in the bee-loud glade. And I shall have some peace there, for peace comes dropping slow, dropping from the vales of morning to where the cricket sings. There midnight's all a glimmer, and noon a purple glow, and evening full of the linnet's wings. I will arise and go now, for always night and day I hear lake water lapping with low sounds by the shore. While I stand on the roadway or on the pavement's grey, I feel it in the deep heart's core. Let us take that peace with us over tonight's meeting and into Christmas and into the new year. So, without further ado, we shall move on to the ordinary meeting. I'm sure you have all got the hang of this now. Will all be muted unless you wish to speak. When you wish to speak, we will try and use the blue virtual hand, and you will then be called upon to speak at the appropriate time. Please bear with us. It is quite challenging managing the blue hand on such a large screen and with such a lot of people, but we will do our best. We now come to voting, and I have been discussing, and I know it was taken to the group leaders meeting to see if we could resolve some of the ways in which we can do voting. You have to appreciate that for transparency, that for most people watching this meeting, they cannot see, as I can, the whole screen and everybody assembled. And therefore, doing votes by raising our hands is difficult to manage if we are getting a truly open and transparent meeting. So I wasn't sure whether there was a way of agreeing perhaps how to deal with some of the less contentious votes, whether there might be a way of reaching some sort of agreement that was transparent. But as I understand, we haven't reached any alternative voting system. So we will, I'm afraid, have to do named votes. And this does take time. And we apologise for that, and we do it as quickly as we can. But there doesn't seem to me another way of dealing with votes. So you will have to bear with us, and we have come copiously prepared with lots of sheets of paper, and we will tick you all off. But that is the system on which we are working this time round. So please be alert for any named votes. We will try and get through the business effectively. We will try and keep ourselves focused and to the point, and I will try and keep you all on track. So, may I go to declarations of interest? May I ask all members who have a personal, prejudicial, or disclosable pecuniary interest in any of the business to be discussed at tonight's meeting to declare your interests now, if you have not already done so in advance on the members' register of interests. Is anybody indicating? Councillor Kilbane, yes, you have an interest? Oh yes, and your blue hand is sitting there.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. A family member is in receipt of carers allowance, which they use to help look after my mum. And I believe that this is a personal interest that a member of the public would reasonably regard as likely to prejudice my judgment of item 8.3. So based on the local government principles of selflessness, integrity, objectivity, accountability, openness, honesty and leadership, I will leave the meeting during the debate and voting on that item.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kilbane. Are there any other hands being risen? I can't see anything. Right, thank you very much indeed. May we have approval of the minutes? I have been informed of an error in the minutes of the last meeting, minute 73(1). After the moving of the motion on free school meals, it should be added that Councillor Waters moved a motion to suspend standing orders in order to move an amendment, and that the motion to suspend was seconded by Councillor Rowley, voted on and lost. Subject to that addition, do I have members' approval to sign the minutes of the council meeting held on the 29th of October 2020? Councillor Doughty, you have raised a hand.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I just wish to highlight that on the Labour Building Consensus motion on agenda page 31, I voted against the Lib Dem Wrecking amendment as a point of principle, but the minutes do not show me as voting. It is, of course, somewhat unfortunate that tonight both Labour and the Lib Dems have put wrecking amendments in. It's the first Conservative Council motion for nearly 2 years. Thank you.
I will note your amendment as far as the signing of the minutes are concerned.
Point of order, Lord Mayor.
Yes.
The Labour Party hasn't put in an amendment on the Conservative motion.
Thank you very much, Councillor Crawshaw. You're quite right. So can you note that, Councillor Doughty?
I haven't been advised that the Labour one was withdrawn. That was published, Lord Mayor.
Well, it has.
It wasn't published, Lord Mayor.
Anyway, we'll just note that, and when we come to the motions, we will see how that's going to pan out.
Thank you.
Otherwise, do we have those minutes agreed? Can I see your waving hands? Any dissent to the minutes? Okay. You're not dissenting, are you, Councillor Runciman? No, that's fine. We'll agree the minutes then. Okay. We now come to the civic announcements. I'm quite brief on these. I would like to say at the end of 2020, one has to think what year we're in these days. The year coming to an end, which has been such an extraordinarily complicated and difficult year. I want to say a huge thank you, as Lord Mayor, to all staff that have worked for the City Council throughout these very difficult times. I want to say thank you to all councillors who I know have been tireless in doing their best to support their local communities. I want to say thank you to the general public for all the hard work and commitment which continues to support our community through this pandemic. It has been amazing. We are all taking a deep breath, but I have to say, I don't think we're at the end yet. Perhaps we are beginning to come to an end, but I think we have all got to keep going for the next few months, at least, while we see what happens to the virus and what happens to vaccinations. But a big thank you on my behalf from all of us here for everybody's efforts and hard work and commitment. I have had 3 events which struck me particularly over the last month or so. 2 of them were Zoom, and one of them was actually real. I attended the launch of the culture strategy for the city, a fascinating Zoom conference, which was organised by the head of the culture part of Make It York. And I did say when I gave my vote of thanks at the end of it was that I do feel a huge personal pride and sense of achievement because, oh Lord, it must be back in 2018. I was involved in a scrutiny committee which spent a year just about looking at the impact of culture on the economic well-being of the city. And at the end of that, we made a recommendation which went to the executive and was carried that York should have a proper, full-blown culture strategy. And it's taken a long time, but the best things take time. And it was a great thrill to finally launch it, beginning of December, I think. Yes, I think it was. But it was a very great event, and I shall be delighted to see how it works through for the future. I also attended, this was in a very personal capacity, a forum, the Forum on the Human Rights City. They produced their annual human rights report. Always a great event to go to, always an assault on one's conscience and on one's aspirations, and a challenge to the work we all do in our communities. But it was, as ever, deeply rewarding, and I was very pleased to be part of it. And finally, just this week, I attended the formal cutting of a ribbon with a nice pair of scissors at the new residential care home and health facility at what some of us still think of as Burnholme site. And again, this was a hugely personal memory for me, because way back really when, I was involved in the decision that was made to finally close Burnholme School. And one of the things we wanted to do with the site was create a facility for elderly people's care. And it was a great achievement. Again, these things take so long, don't they? But it was a great achievement to actually be there. We couldn't go inside because of all the restrictions, but to actually be there, cut the ribbon, and hear a little bit about how it will be opening very shortly. And I'm taking a rain check on making a visit to it, hopefully sometime in the new year. So that was, again, a very special occasion. We now come to public participation. Our public speakers will be joining the meeting by phone. I will introduce each speaker in turn and invite them to speak. Once they have finished speaking, each one will be asked to hang up before I introduce the next speaker. Speakers cannot participate any further in the remote meeting, but they are welcome to continue watching the live webcast if they wish. We have 3 speakers this evening. Each of them has a maximum of 3 minutes to address us or to raise a question on any matter directly relevant to our business. I will call upon our first speaker, Phil Pinder, who would like to speak on motion 1 at agenda item 8 regarding free parking after 3 p.m. on behalf of the York Retail Forum. Phil Pinder.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you, councillors, for listening to me. Just to say, I'm also speaking on behalf as a director of York Bid as well, and this was raised at the bid yesterday. Retail and hospitality businesses have had a terrible year. The vast majority still in business is because the owners have invested or borrowed money to keep the businesses afloat. Most city centre retail businesses have lost around 1/3 of their income this year, and this is much more for hospitality businesses. The Retail Forum and the bid have been responsible in the past for initiatives that have seen our park and ride services run late. So we're not purely supporting this just as a car park initiative. However, with social distancing, this initiative is vital. With the potential of a 3rd national lockdown in the new year, the cost of this motion could be very limited, but the support of councillors would show businesses that you're on their side, and that would be very welcome right now. With shops in the city centre currently trading around 40% on the same Christmas period in 2019, January and February expected to be very dire trading periods. And we can try to do and boost this will be crucial to job prosperity and the overall effect on our whole economy in York. We've already lost hundreds of jobs in retail and hospitality, and many shops and businesses have closed and probably won't reopen. I hope you'll support this motion and try and help me stem any further job losses and business closures. The free after 3 p.m, just to say, it's something we've proposed before as a retail forum due to the drop-off in parking numbers that happen of people arriving in the car parks in the city after 3 p.m. And we hope that you can support this motion and take it forward. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pinder. Your comments will have been noted and will be taken into account when, as you say, we come to debate that particular motion. I now call upon the second speaker, Andrew McGuinness, who would also like to speak on the free after 3 motion at item 8.1 on behalf of the York Quality Bus Partnership? Mr. McGuinness.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and good evening, members. My name is Andrew McGuinness, and I'm representing city bus operators as the Vice Chair of the York Quality Bus Partnership, and more widely in the north of England through CPT, the industry trade body. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you before the motion on the free after free parking initiative. Through the pandemic, the bus industry has adapted and served our communities, keeping essential bus services on the road with the support of local and national government. We fully support action being taken by the Council to support residents and city businesses in recovering our local economy and helping to protect jobs. This is a shared action, but we must consider an integrated approach to our recovery. And in view of this, I'll make 3 points. First of all, on environmental impact. Air pollution is the largest environmental health risk we face today. The Council has made good progress in embedding sustainable travel measures in its policies, such as the upcoming York Clean Air Zone. We have recently seen significant improvements in air quality and bus journey speeds achieved by reduced car traffic. But there's a real risk that these benefits will be rapidly undone if we encourage people to get back in their cars. Secondly, on congestion, free parking is not free when measuring the impact of increased car traffic and air quality. The proposal will encourage traffic into the constrained city centre in the evening peak and adding traffic onto our roads at the end of the school day. We are already seeing traffic levels return to pre-pandemic rates. Greater congestion will increase journey times across the bus network, resulting in worsening reliability and pushing down passenger numbers. This at a time when we need more people to be travelling sustainably in order to meet York's climate ambitions. And thirdly, on the opportunity to promote bus, as we restart the economy, there's an opportunity to recognise the key role buses play in delivering economic growth through green recovery and promoting healthy lifestyles. Buses will play a critical role in the economy. Each year, bus passengers account for £64 billion of positive value to the UK economy, and in shopping and leisure to the value of £27 billion a year. Our buses have capacity despite social distancing restrictions, and significant steps have been taken to keep buses COVID safe for passengers. With investment in new and cleaner fleets and offers such as the All York Family Day ticket, half price at £5.50, the bus sector is in a great position to support green economic growth. I'll finish by saying finally, the York Quality Bus Partnership supports action taken by the Council to speed up the recovery of the local economy and asks councillors to support the role that buses can play in supporting the city economy. Thank you for your time, councillors and Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mr. McGuinness. Your comments have been noted and I'm sure will be taken into account when the motion is debated. I now call upon the third and final speaker, Mayor Pearson, who would also like to speak on the free after 3 motion on behalf of York Cycle Campaign. Ms. Pearson.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and good evening, everyone. So yes, this is a prepared statement from the York Cycle Campaign. Our first concern about this measure is that it will increase vehicle traffic in York at around 3 p.m. at a time of year when visibility is poor and when children are travelling home from school. Families who walk and cycle to school will be put at increased risk from the extra vehicle traffic, jeopardising the Council's own initiatives regarding school travel and actively discouraging walking and cycling. I think as previous statements have suggested, there seems to be a misperception that cyclists don't spend money in shops. We are very much in favour of supporting city centre businesses. For example, we have recently promoted Ride Local Shop Local initiative. The pandemic means that the city cannot rely on people coming from further afield. And indeed, the buses have recently started installing cycle racks, which means that people can come even further afield on public transport with their bike. Recent data from the York bid show that over 1/3 of the spend in recent months came from people living within 10 kilometres of York. Many of these journeys could be and are made by foot or cycle. Enabling and encouraging local people is the best way of supporting city centre businesses through these challenging times. To boost Trade City in the city centre, the cycle campaign will like you to consider relaxing cycle restrictions on the city centre foot streets. There is strong evidence that encouraging cycling will boost city centre trade. A Sustrans study in the city of Bristol showed that retailers overestimated the importance of car-borne trade by almost 100%. They estimated that 41% of their customers arrived by car, whereas only 22% had done so. Conversely, they underestimated the share of cyclists amongst their customers. Meanwhile, a Department of Transport study revealed that cycle parking generates 5 times higher retail spend than the same area of car parking. The same study showed that cyclists visit local shops more regularly, spending more than users of most other modes of transport. Currently, many local people are discouraged from visiting York city centre because they are unable to cycle to their destination. The cycle routes, the assigned cycle routes are rather circuitous and in fact much longer than the car options. We would like you to consider relaxing foot street restrictions to allow cycling after 3. This would provide some mitigation for the loss of blue badge parking and enable people with limited mobility to reach businesses at the heart of the city. It would also provide safe access for local families to visit shops and attractions and encourage all residents to explore beyond their usual haunts. Enable local people to reach the city centre and they will come. Thank you very much for your time.
That's great. Thank you very much, Ms. Pearson. And your comments have been noted and will be certainly taken into account when the motion is debated. That concludes the public participation session. Notice has not been received of any petitions to be presented this evening, so we will move seamlessly on to item 6 on the agenda, which is report of the executive leader and the executive. Councillor Aston.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. With Christmas around the corner, I'd like to begin as you did by wishing all councillors, council staff and those watching at home all the best for the festive period. I know that normally, certainly during the break, we'd be passing around mince pies, so I hope you all have one stashed away at home somewhere else. As mentioned in my report, I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank everybody for all of their work over the past year. Over the course of the challenging year, York has had to respond to flooding from Storm Dennis, the very first cases of COVID-19 in the UK, to the pandemic we find ourselves in. We have achieved so much as a council, particularly our key workers, from supporting the most vulnerable in the city to delivering crucial frontline services which so many rely on. Since my report was written, we have had confirmation from the government this morning that York remains in Tier 2 restrictions over the Christmas period. Local residents and businesses have done an outstanding job in suppressing the virus, with York's rate of infection remaining both below the regional and national average. However, we know that things can change all too quickly. As seen in London and parts of the South East, the rate at which the infection spreads can sharply increase. The council will continue with its work to communicate all the latest public health guidance, as well as work with local partners and the police to ensure people are safe in the city. The economic impact of the pandemic continues to be sorely felt, and in response, the council has been working around the clock to process a new round of grant payments to local businesses swiftly in order to help as many local businesses as possible with their cash flow. In regards to testing, the council submitted its expression of interest for mass community testing last month, and I'm pleased to say that additional testing is now taking place in the city. At this point in time, retail, transport and hospitality workers are being given priority due to their regular contact with others during this busy period. We've requested an update on how soon testing can be expanded to more groups for the next Outbreak Advisory Board. Before I move on from discussing our pandemic response, I think it's important to note that the first vaccines for York residents were administered this week, and I believe councillors might have been amongst that number. And therefore, despite the difficulties of 2020, there is light at the end of the tunnel. Whilst this huge logistical programme is underway, the council will continue to prioritise public health and focus resources on building back better. Moving on to the spending review, I do welcome the additional £400,000 to develop further proposals for a new Haxby station. This is something we've lobbied for a long time now, and it is encouraging to see that our initial bid was of sufficient quality to secure this crucial funding. However, it's also important to underline that the Chancellor's spending review was not the early Christmas present local government had hoped for. Although the Chancellor stated that there would be increased spending power for local government, on analysis of the detail, this is in fact increases in both council tax and the social care precept. Therefore, the risk, as always, continues to sit with local government. Following our last full council meeting, the council has now submitted our case to government for York to remain as a unitary council on its existing footprint. I'd like to thank all of those that joined us in the cross-organisation and cross-party Back York campaign, which supports the council's position. Over 1,100 people have signed the petition and backed the campaign, so I would urge everyone who wants to protect the city's unique and self-governing identity to share that campaign. I won't speak for too long in this meeting, focusing on council motions, but I would just like to underline the continued progress we make with York Central, with the Reserve Matters Planning application recently approved by planning. This is yet another vital step forward, which will see a contractor on site early 2021 to begin infrastructure works, a long way from the years of talking about this crucial project, but not achieving progress. Lastly, I would just like to finish by saying that even though York City Knights did not succeed with their bids to get into Super League, I think we should all be proud as a council of their work on and off the pitch, particularly in our communities, and that there is a bright future ahead for the club, particularly with the completion of the new LNER Community Stadium announced yesterday. I will stop there, Lord Mayor, and I'm very happy to take questions later. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Aston. We have 5 minutes for other group leaders to respond. Councillor Danny Myers.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. At this time of year, I'd usually be dropping Christmas cards around members and wishing everyone well for the festive season. However, over Zoom will have to do. So I trust all members will have a happy Christmas, and I wish you all well for the new year. Lord Mayor, I too want to pay tribute to council staff, key workers in our city, and also those who've been volunteering, who have or are still volunteering in their communities. I believe in fair pay for working people and a fair reward for the efforts of key workers over this year. Being on the front line of the COVID response has certainly deserved a pay rise, and rather than standing on the sidelines and lobbying, I really believe the council should take an interventionist approach to the wages of the lowest paid within our city and make good on our warm words and promises to them. Lord Mayor, I recognise the sacrifices York residents have had to make for the best part of a year to keep the city going, and I express my condolences to all those who've lost loved ones through this period due to the pandemic, and I recognise the difficulty of frayed social contact within our city and communities. I have been pleased to be part of the Outbreak Board, and I really must praise the work of the public health team, health partners on that board, and also the other organisations that take part for their help and collegiate working. This has had a significant impact upon our local response to the pandemic. Lord Mayor, on York Central, I really want to make the point again that the development should be primarily focused, in my view, on the commercial and industrial gold mine that it is, due to its centralised location that other towns and cities could be forever envious over. We really should not squander the chance to use this development to turn our economy round, aiming higher than our current low-wage, insecure work economy, and instead use this unique opportunity to develop the much-needed career jobs that are currently missing in York's employment mix. On the Outer Ring Road, consultation with residents should include a wider look at the transport needs of the city and how the Ring Road relates to wider transport movements. I really expected this to be done as part of the local transport plan 4 work, But given some of that budget's now being used elsewhere and the transport plan itself is still delayed, I do have concern that the work on the ring road will be a missed opportunity for transport improvements for the whole city. It's been an expensive week in that we've seen Make It York bailed out and 1.4 million added to the community stadium. And it's also been an expensive year. Now, despite the motion passed at the last full council, we haven't seen any of the resolutions to maximise opportunities to build consensus. And specifically, the upcoming budget process hasn't afforded us any opportunity yet to feed into or view those savings and growth priorities within each department. And we think that's a great shame. We know there are difficult challenges ahead, and we would want to work or be able to work with elected members across the council to help avert dangerous cuts to public services. And finally, Lord Mayor, I too note the disappointment in the Super League's decision not to admit the York City Knights to Super League earlier this week. I want to pay tribute to John Flatman and everyone at the Knights for their outstanding bid. And I know amateur clubs around the city really feel like the Knights are going places, and the way that they've carried out their campaign really gave them confidence and hope that the sport is strong and growing. I note the club's response in its enthusiasm to get promotion the traditional way on the field, and I can't wait for the new season to start early next year. Again, I'd like to wish you all, in fact, I'd like to wish the people of York a happy Christmas and a prosperous new year. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Myers. Councillor Doughty, your hand is up.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I do, of course, join in continuing to give thanks to all that continue to work hard in the most trying conditions of the pandemic. I do have a right of reply to the report rather than the ability to discuss the key issues the city faces. And so this time cannot, for example, talk about the local plan or indeed Make It York, which again is totally missing from this report. Councillor Afston's report is a predictable lack of detail and specifics, but a bonanza for anyone playing party politics bingo and the amount of references to lobbying and more money being needed. I assume Councillor Afston has been reading different news from the government to the rest of us as huge amounts of money have been delivered and committed to. The Lib Dems Back York plan has of course got no tangibles at all, except whatever the government gives York, more is needed. It is as weak as the Let's Be York slogan, which people are apparently meant to know means take care with COVID, as though a slogan like take care with COVID would leave their minds blank. At the last full council, I asked Councillor Afston what spending decisions the council was reviewing given the current situations. He got very angry and suggested I was saying times were not tough for councils. I was, of course, saying the absolute opposite and asking what spending may be cut. The plan of keeping everything as is and expecting the taxpayer to pick up the tab, whether locally with council tax or through the government, is not sensible. Again, my one question to the council leader is in this right of reply is for him to outline some of the areas his administration is cutting planning spends. The report talks about devolution and the submission of the council's case for York to remain a unitary as it is, which was extremely weak and lacked detail. Much seems based on the idea that the boundaries from just 2 decades ago are the absolute peak of Yorkness, as opposed to the ones which had been in place for much longer. But if we go any further out, people will lose all sense of York identity and history. Councillor Afston says that the city has come together to oppose devolution, which even from the party of bar charts is a strange claim for a biased council survey, missing more than 99.5% of the population's radar, and even then 1/3 of the respondents not giving the desired answer. Then there was the somewhat odd collection of organisations that could be persuaded to back the council's case, It must be the first time in history a local rugby league club has been asked to be at the forefront of local government reorganisation discussion. The main arguments against are seemingly there would be a disruption in any change, which would evidently stop any change on anything. If only the council applied the same logic to its various road schemes, which are so often put back. As Councillor Aston is well aware, the idea that council tax would go up with York in a larger authority is disingenuous. Is he comparing two-tier authorities, which are more costly by definition, but two-tier is being done away with, and efficiency savings would therefore flow from size as well as fundamentally better run councils. Claims that the Lib Dems want low council tax will be laughed at by residents who see the way they waste money. On York Central, progress continues to look slow, and even Councillor Aston can't find any areas the government has not delivered every aspect of what the city desired. Whilst movement is slow, it does, though, seem to be plodding on regardless. My group remains concerned at key aspects of the project, like the disruption to residents of one-way traffic through Lehman Road Tunnel, and in the changed world of office space post the pandemic, that the council is not considering losing one single foot of office space. We've continued to back new investment in the East Coast Main Line and welcome all the government is doing on east-west connectivity. We're seeing record investment in the railway and improvements in reliability. We've got new fleets, modernised trains, and prior to the pandemic, passenger numbers were rising significantly.
30 seconds, Councillor Doughty.
And we hope
Can you
we'll
wind
continue
up
to rise thereafter. Thank you. It's surprising that the benefits of the investment, which he details in his report, are news to Councillor Aston, given the East Coast Mainline Association, which York chaired going back many years, has long been involved in such work. I'll wrap up. I'd just like to say, take this opportunity to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas, and thank you.
Thank you very much. I've got Councillor Carr indicating.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you, Lord Mayor, for the opportunity to respond. And in the interests of brevity, and on behalf of Councillor Galvin and myself, I would just like to add my thanks to all the parties cited by the leader and Councillor Myers in their presentations, and to wish everyone a peaceful Christmas. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carr. You are a welcome brevity and a source of light. I hope other people will take note of your wonderful, succinct comments. Thank you very much. I've got no further indications of anybody eligible to speak. Councillor Aston, do you wish to reply?
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. Could I thank fellow group leaders for their responses, and in particular welcome Councillor Myers. Thanks for council staff, in particular our public health team and the work of many partners on the Outbreak Advisory Board. And equally entirely agree with Councillor Myers on fair pay for key workers and the commitment that this council has to pay the living wage, and more than happy to talk to him outside of the meeting about that and how we continue to make that case elsewhere. I think one of the general points where we do agree is that cuts to public services and risk to the lowest pay will flow through unless the government wakes up in terms of the impact to social care and on local government through its spending review. And obviously lots of councils across the country are going to be put into positions where they're having to make decisions that I hope that none of us here would want to make in the future. There are a range of potential benefits with York Central. Of course, that's if York Central happens, and we support making that scheme happen, whether that be housing, jobs, or new cultural facilities. And obviously we are committed to making sure that is delivered and that the city sees those benefits. To Councillor Doughty, I find it slightly odd that you refer to the progress on York Central being slow, when indeed a Conservative councillor voted against reserve matters planning stage, which would have certainly made it an awful lot slower. But perhaps you can have a chat to your colleague on that. That scheme is vital, and it is absolutely vital after decades of talking about it, that we deliver it and see those benefits with partners across the city. The reason we're lobbying on Back York and for funding is because the government isn't listening. And that is not something that's unique to York. We're joining the Local Government Association, led by a Conservative. We're joining the Association of Directors of Children's Services, the Association of Directors of Public Health, to point out the impact on public services and local government moving forward. I always welcome government funding when it's given. So some of those things initiated, such as Haxby Station, such as York Central, and some of the funding that's been given to help us through the pandemic response. But it really is, I'm afraid, a drop in the ocean compared to the funding pressures and demand for new services that we have in York and any council delivering adult social care and children's services have. So I'd really welcome Councillor Doughty, you joining with us to make sure that message is heard, and then perhaps we could stop saying it in the future. The campaign on local government reorganisation is not quite as characterised. We have never said that residents oppose devolution. Devolution of power and more responsibilities to local areas is exactly what many of us want to see. What we don't want to see is a forced merger into a rural and coastal authority that has no historical or other identity to York. And I could go on at length about the impact on our history, the disruption during a pandemic, or how service delivery in a rural and coastal area would change, and indeed remind you of the PwC work that reflects that increase to council tax. But I won't. There'll be other opportunities to go with it. But I hope you and your colleagues will join with many other Conservatives here and in North Yorkshire that are supporting that cross-organisation, cross-party case. Particularly pleased that you highlight that York City Knights, an important organisation in the city, see benefit of decisions for York continuing to be made in York. And Councillor Carr, I agree with you, Lord Mayor, certainly the most welcome comment, and share the sentiment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Aston.
Point of order, Lord Mayor.
Yes, Councillor Crawshaw.
If I just could, Councillor Aston did seem to imply that Councillor Doughty could influence his colleague in planning, and I would just like to remind Councillor Aston that planning is not a whipped committee. It's really important that we're very clear that members are not influenced in their decision making in planning meetings.
Thank you very much. A very good point, and I'm sure.
Can I respond, Lord Mayor, just to clarify that was not what I was implying. Obviously, Councillor Doughty talked about slowness of delivering the York Central scheme and how we can deliver that as a city.
I'm sure we all understand where you were coming from. I think Councillor Crawshaw makes a good point, and we all take advice, and we all understand the very special relationship that planning has and the way in which we operate on the planning authority. As I did at the last meeting, I am wrapping up questions to the leader, the deputy leader, and executive members generally. We are taking it as the final item on the agenda, where we will have, when I can remember how long, we will have time to ask questions of the whole range, across the whole range of the leader's report and the executive. So we will not take questions now, but we will move on to the report, the recommendations that have to be voted on by council coming from the executive. And I think we have 4 recommendations. I will ask Councillor Aston to move them en bloc and look for a seconder. But when it comes to voting, we will vote on each one individually. And as I said, I will be taking these as named votes on each one individually. So can I ask Councillor Aston to move the recommendations, first of all, en bloc?
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and formally moved.
Are they seconded? Councillor de Gorn is seconded.
Formally second, Lord Mayor.
Formally second, yes. Thank you very much. I now invite debate on any of the recommendations, and oh God, if I can find me papers, I think we have 4 recommendations. So can I see, who wishes to, does anybody wish to speak on any of them at all? Yes, Councillor Myers.
Thank you,
Just
Lord Mayor.
say which one you're speaking on.
Yeah, I just want to make some points on minute number 79. We want all of York to be proud at this moment. The community stadium finally complete and ready to host football and rugby league matches, as well as NHS services and brand new leisure facilities. However, without souring things, the dismissive nature shown towards us whenever we raise concerns about more taxpayer monies being added to the bill is regrettable. I think the fact that it's more than 4 years late and millions have been added to the bill throughout that time is a matter of public record. To get it over the line, we recognise that taxpayers have been presented with another 1.4 million cheque to sign off due to a gamble on restaurant units that didn't pay off. And I won't go into the perverse incentives written into that 2017 decision again. They're also already on record, nor of the private equity fueled over expansion of the restaurant and casual dining sector that caused nationwide chain collapses in that same year. I spoke of that at executive earlier this week. We will be supporting the motion whilst acknowledging the failures of effective management, probity, and oversight from executive members. Similar styles of the bit-by-bit funding approach are prevalent within other major developments in the city. And it is clarity, scrutiny, and supervision upon the consequences of each individual funding request towards the abortive costs of a scheme, which then relates directly to the need to keep ploughing taxpayers' funds in, which all leads to this surely being the lesson to quickly learn here. Thanks, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Myers. I have Councillor Nigel Eyre indicating. Which item are you wishing to speak on, Councillor Eyre?
Just in response to Councillor Myers, Lord Mayor, strangely enough, it is not dismissive to actually state what's happened, and Councillor Myers did, on several occasions at executive, raise concerns about the reliance on the private equity deal to do with the restaurant unit. What I did was not dismiss that issue, but to point out to him that reliance on the private equity income for the stadium was made by a different administration in 2014 and 2015. That is where the reliance on the private equity and the gamble of achieving £12 million came from. That's the gamble that was made. The gamble didn't pay off. I accept that, but Councillor Myers had to realise where the gamble started, and you can't look at the end of a process when that was the point at which it began.
Thank you very much, Councillor Eyre. Are there any other people wishing to speak on any of these recommendations? I haven't seen any hands being raised. Right, we will take a vote. As I said, we will take them one by one. So the first one that we're taking a named vote on is the minute number 67, update on the asset management strategy. Dawn.
Yep,
Dawn is going to do her usual wonderful stuff and call the names.
Please indicate when I've called your name, Councillor, whether you are voting for, against or abstaining in relation to this specific recommendation. Councillor Aspden.
For.
Councillor Eyre.
For.
Councillor Baker.
For.
Councillor Barker.
For.
Councillor Barnes.
For.
Councillor Carr.
For.
Councillor Craghill.
For.
Councillor Crawshaw.
For.
Councillor Culwick.
For.
Councillor Cuthbertson.
4.
Councillor de Gorn.
4.
Councillor Daubonnet.
4.
Councillor Doughty.
Abstain.
Councillor Douglas.
4.
Councillor Fenton.
4.
Councillor Fisher.
4.
Councillor Fitzpatrick.
4.
Councillor Galvin.
4.
Councillor Heaton.
4.
Councillor Hollier.
4.
Councillor Hook.
4.
Councillor Hunter. Councillor Hunter.
4.
Councillor Kilbane.
4.
Councillor Lomas.
4.
Councillor Mason.
4.
Councillor Melly.
4.
Councillor Musson.
4.
Councillor Myers.
4.
Councillor Norman.
4.
Councillor Orrell.
4.
Councillor Pavlovic.
4.
Councillor Pearson.
4.
Councillor Perrott.
4.
Councillor Rowley.
Abstain.
Councillor Runciman.
4.
Councillor Smalley.
4.
Councillor Dave Taylor.
4.
Councillor Callum Taylor.
4.
Councillor Vassy.
4.
Councillor Waller.
4.
Councillor Wan.
4.
Councillor Waters.
Abstain.
Councillor Wardby.
4.
Councillor Webb.
4.
Councillor Widdowson.
4.
Say 4.
Yes.
Lord Mayor.
4.
Okay. So that's weird.
I think that is very
Oh, it's
clear.
definitely,
You've got
it's definitely
everybody voting
carried.
except
3 abstentions,
three
Lord Mayor.
abstentions. But no, I think that is carried with everybody in
43
agreement
for.
with 3 abstentions. So I'll move on to the next vote, which is the Capital Programme Monitor 2. Can I see all those in?
No, no,
named
no,
vote.
you need,
No,
you need me again.
Dawn will do it again.
Okay, same process, indicate whether you're voting for, against or abstaining. Councillor Aston.
4.
Councillor Eyre.
4.
Councillor Baker.
4.
Councillor Barker.
4.
Councillor Barnes.
4.
Councillor Carr.
4.
Councillor Craghill.
4.
Councillor Crawshaw.
4.
Councillor Colwick.
4.
Councillor Cuthbertson.
4.
Councillor de Gorn.
4.
Councillor Daubonnet.
4.
Councillor Doughty.
Abstain.
Councillor Douglas.
4.
Councillor Fenton.
4.
Councillor Fisher.
4.
Councillor Fitzpatrick.
4.
Councillor Galvin.
4.
Councillor Heaton.
4.
Councillor Hollier.
4.
Councillor Hook.
4.
Councillor Hunter.
4.
Councillor Kilbane.
4.
Councillor Lomas.
4.
Councillor Mason.
4.
Councillor Melly.
4.
Councillor Musson.
4.
Councillor Myers.
4.
Councillor Norman.
4.
Councillor Orrell.
4.
Councillor Pavlovic.
4.
Councillor Pearson.
4.
Councillor Rowley.
Abstention.
Yeah, Councillor Perrott, sorry. I missed Councillor Perrott
4.
before. Yeah. Councillor Runciman.
4.
Councillor Smalley.
4.
Councillor Dave Taylor.
4.
Councillor Callum Taylor.
4.
Councillor Vassy.
4.
Councillor Waller.
4.
Councillor Wan.
4.
Councillor Waters.
Abstain.
Councillor Wardby.
4.
Councillor Webb.
4.
Councillor Widdowson.
4.
Lord Mayor.
4.
Same again, Lord Mayor. 43,
So
4.
again, it was carried with 3 abstentions. I think, yes, 3.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to the, where
Next
am I
one.
up to?
We're on to
79,
page, yeah.
the Stadium Leisure Complex commercial proposal. Can I again take a vote on that one, please, Dawn?
Yep. 4 against or abstaining when I call your name, please. Councillor Aston.
4.
Councillor Eyre.
4.
Councillor Baker.
4.
Councillor Barker.
4.
Councillor Barnes.
4.
Councillor Carr.
4.
Councillor Craghill.
4.
Councillor Crawshaw.
4.
Councillor Colwick.
4.
Councillor Cuthbertson.
4.
Councillor de Gorne.
4.
Councillor Daubeny.
4.
Councillor Doughty.
Abstain.
Councillor Douglas.
4.
Councillor Fenton.
4.
Councillor Fisher.
4.
Councillor Fitzpatrick.
4.
Councillor Galvin.
4.
Councillor Heaton.
4.
Councillor Hollier.
4.
Councillor Hook.
4.
Councillor Hunter.
4.
Councillor Kilbane.
4.
Councillor Lomas.
4.
Councillor Mason.
4.
Councillor Melly.
4.
Councillor Musson.
4.
Councillor Myers.
4.
Councillor Norman.
4.
Councillor Orrell.
4.
Councillor Pavlovich.
4.
Councillor Pearson.
4.
Councillor Perrott.
4.
Councillor Rowley.
Abstain.
Councillor Runciman.
4.
Councillor Smalley.
4.
Councillor Dave Taylor.
Abstain.
Councillor Callum Taylor.
4.
Councillor Vassy.
4.
Councillor Waller.
4.
Councillor Wan.
4.
Councillor Waters.
Against.
Again. Councillor Wardby.
4.
Councillor Webb.
4.
Councillor Widdowson.
4.
Lord Mayor.
4.
So this time you've got 3 abstentions and 1 against. So it's 42
Right.
4.
Sorry?
42 4.
So it's 42 in favour, 1 against and 2 abstentions.
3 abstentions.
3 abstentions. Sorry, yes, I was getting muddled. 3 abstentions. So it is carried. Move on to the final recommendation at minute 80, amendment to council tax support scheme. Again, Dawn, you can do the honours.
Thank you. Whether you're voting for, against or abstaining, please. Councillor Abston.
4.
Councillor Eyre.
Affirmative.
Councillor Baker.
4.
Councillor Barker.
4.
Councillor Barnes.
4.
Councillor Carr.
4.
Councillor Craghill.
4.
Councillor Crawshaw.
4.
Councillor Colwick.
4.
Councillor Cuthbertson.
4.
Councillor de Gorne.
4.
Councillor Daubeny.
4.
Councillor Doughty.
4.
Councillor Douglas.
4.
Councillor Fenton.
4.
Councillor Fisher.
4.
Councillor Fitzpatrick.
4.
Councillor Galvin.
4.
Councillor Heaton.
4.
Councillor Hollier.
4.
Councillor Hook.
4.
Councillor Hunter.
4.
Councillor Kilbane.
4.
Councillor Lomas.
4.
Councillor Mason. Councillor Mason.
Hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes,
we
can you
can.
say?
4.
Thank you.
Councillor Melly.
4.
Councillor Musson.
4.
Councillor Myers.
4.
Councillor Norman.
4.
Councillor Orrell.
4.
Councillor Pavlovic.
Yep, 4.
Councillor Pearson.
4. Thank you.
Councillor Perrott.
4.
Councillor Rowley.
4.
Councillor Runciman.
4.
Councillor Smalley.
4.
Councillor Dave Taylor.
4.
Councillor Callum Taylor.
4.
Councillor Vassey.
4.
Councillor Waller.
4.
Councillor Wan.
4.
Councillor Waters.
4.
Councillor Wardby.
4.
Councillor Webb.
4.
Councillor Widdowson.
4.
Lord Mayor.
4.
Unanimous, Lord Mayor.
I think that was carried unanimously. Thank you very much, everybody. That concludes our voting on the executive recommendations. I will now move on to the report of the Deputy Leader, which is moved formally and
It's Lord Mayor, page 39, people can read it and you don't need to vote on it, you'll be pleased to hear.
thank you very much. We note that. Is that seconded?
Formally seconded, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much. As I've said before, we will be dealing with all questions arising out of these reports at the end of the agenda. So we will now move on to item 8. And may I say we are doing quite well. So we have 4 motions on notice submitted under Standing Order 22.1, and these are in your supplementary papers. And I will take motion number 1, call for 3 after 3 parking initiative. And Councillor Rowley, I believe you're moving the motion.
Thank you, Lord.
3 minutes. No, 5 minutes. No, pretend I didn't say 5 minutes. Treat it as 3.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Members, I believe this motion offers a specific and much needed aid to York businesses, whether it's a small shop, cafes, restaurants, bars, or other larger outlets. I want to thank the chair of the York Retail Forum for his passionate speech on behalf of the businesses in York, and also recognise the other public speakers in this particular motion. Unlike any other group's motions that may cost money, council officers have insisted that a cost be inserted into ours. We do not believe that the cost will be anything like the £250,000 stated, as this is free parking for one part of the day in 2 of the year's quietest months, indeed probably the quietest 2 of the year. And of course, it's the toughest of all times, with the crippling effects of the pandemic on York's economy. However, that alleged cost must be measured against the perceived doing nothing, as more businesses risk going to the wall, which ultimately means less business rates money, and York wrongly being perceived as a city that doesn't want to help residents or businesses. Those of you that have got to know me over the last 18 months know that I don't do political games. I was elected to serve the residents in Osbaldwick and Derwent Ward in the first instance, and also the wider city population. I genuinely and truly hoped, although I didn't really believe, that this could be a non-controversial motion that carried cross-party support, where we as a council could actively help businesses with a simple lifeline, recognising all the current initiatives and support already in place. This is intended to increase footfall into the city at the time that it is most needed. Evidently, it would seem that the biggest group on the council doesn't agree, and therefore think businesses operating in the toughest climate that any of us have seen in our lifetimes would rather hear the council pontificate about past government grants being passed on and what a future committee could look at, or how much carbon we would be using a decade from now. If you really don't care about the here and now, or truly understand how bad trading on the high street really is, just vote against the motion. Please don't play the wrecking amendment nonsense. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much. Do I have a seconder? Seconding, yes, Councillor Doughty.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Formally second, reserve the right.
Thank you very much. Now, as has been indicated, we have an amendment from Councillor Eyre. Can I take Councillor Eyre? Can you speak to the amendment?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm wearing a Santa hat this evening. Some people do doubt the existence of Santa, in many ways the same as they doubt the existence of sending in amendments, it would seem. But I will go on to say, I want to begin by saying that I understand the rationale behind the original motion. However, I'd like to take the time I have today to point out the flaws in the motion that the amendment in front of you aims to set straight. Throughout the pandemic, we have had two main priorities: protecting the health of everyone in the city and supporting York's businesses to help protect jobs and livelihoods. Major work has taken place to accelerate the city's economic recovery, including the processing over 110 million in grant payments, delivery of targeted support schemes for businesses who fell through the cracks of government schemes, and the delivery of various parking incentives for council-owned car parks. The original motion, firstly, risks damaging the public health efforts, which have seen our city report the lowest coronavirus cases numbers in the region. Our public health efforts are crucial in our bid to support businesses. At a time when the virus is still unfortunately present in the city, travel incentives that seek to spread demand must be enacted, helping to manage and prevent overcrowding in the city centre. Secondly, the motion and the mover failed to understand the need for such incentives to be fully costed and appropriately planned for in terms of subsidising the cost of any planned intervention. The motion goes directly against the advice of the Section 151 officer in regards to the use of general reserves and fails to appreciate the real cost impact. As members will be aware, we are very much at the end of the budget setting discussions at an incredibly financially challenging time for the council. Such major incentives as proposed in the motion must be introduced as part of next year's budget to offset the real cost of the policy and the impact on council provided services. Whilst it's clearly true that we've seen a significant drop in parking revenue incomes, the current compensation scheme introduced by the government is a major addition to the council budget of approximately £5.5 million, meaning that crucial services can be protected and delivered despite the major financial losses facing the council. If all parking charges were to be suspended, this money would be lost. Furthermore, on the need to introduce policies which are thoroughly planned out, in order to introduce such an incentive, there are clearly technical requirements. It is estimated that it would take around 2 months and a further 35,000 to reprogram parking meters. This would see the incentive only take place in March at the earliest, meaning the motion would fail to have immediate impact on the local business community as intended. Finally, our amendment also seeks to address the need for any support or incentive schemes to be able to deliver the support local businesses need in a more targeted way. While developing and promoting sustainable transport options, I will leave this point to be addressed by Councillor de Gaulle next, as I'm sure he's more qualified to speak on those matters. Overall, Lord Mayor, the Lib Dem Green Amendment seeks to address the need for further business support. We'll continue to support local businesses through targeted and comprehensive support schemes, as well as further parking and sustainable travel incentive initiatives as part of the Council's Economic Recovery Plan. I urge you to support the amendment.
Thank you very much, Councillor Eyre. Councillor de Gaulle, are you seconding this? Yes.
Yes, Lord Mayor. I'm pleased to second this amendment, which provides a more flexible approach to supporting businesses with targeted incentives that respond to changing circumstances as they unfold, providing a more balanced approach to include the full range of travel options for city centre customers. Local businesses continue to face significant challenges, including customer confidence, something particularly important to York's retail, hospitality and visitor economy. We fully recognise transport as central to our COVID-19 response, addressed through the one-year transport and place strategy, with short-term pragmatism to accept that recovery relies on our residents, who will only visit the city centre if they can travel with confidence in a way they feel safe. We aim to strike a balance by encouraging people who feel vulnerable or safest in their cars to visit, but also encourage people back onto public transport in a safe way, benefiting from the many hygiene measures of bus and train operators to keep their customers safe. We also want to reinforce the message that those that are able to use most sustainable active travel modes, such as cycling and walking, can help to reduce congestion and provide individual health benefits for themselves. We already deliver significant business and parking initiatives to support the safe reopening of our city centre businesses by extending foot streets, encouraging walking, cycling and working with local public transport operators alongside the free parking Bring Go app initiatives. We have already encouraged many people to shop locally and support York's vibrant economy. This was clearly demonstrated by a significant business recovery in the city centre during July and August, following the lifting of the first lockdown. While parking incentives may be seen as beneficial, attracting visitors and residents are by no means a silver bullet. Limitations of public transport at this time are recognised, but our new double-decker bus electric park and ride buses are building up custom, as has been referred to by the Speaker, the current half-price Old York Family Day ticket. Any incentives must focus on spreading custom across the quieter periods and certainly not offering free after 3 parking on Saturdays and Sundays as was being proposed, with the likelihood of lost morning custom, lost parking and retail income, and congestion around car parking entrances and in our shopping areas after 3 o'clock. To support local business community, we will be looking for targeted support and travel incentives which take advantage of a wider modal shift towards active sustainable travel that took place during lockdown, as well as encouraging weekday evening trips by residents through such measures as the free evening parking for Minster badge holders. Please support the amendment.
Thank you very much, Councillor Dawn. I have Councillor Melly to speak.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Yeah, I just wanted to say that I am glad to see a motion proposing action to support city centre businesses. January and February will be a tough time for a lot of local businesses after a really tough year. But rather than subsidising car parking, this money needs to be spent more creatively on a public transport offer. With a lack of meaningful announcements on support for public transport from the government, and especially with a lack of a local transport plan for the city, we need to take action now to improve the public transport and support our vitally important local bus services who've been badly hit this year as well. I agree we need something in place to support the city centre economy and support local residents who want to enjoy our beautiful city and local businesses. So I support this amendment. Although it doesn't include any specific sustainable travel incentive initiative proposals, I look forward to seeing what the executive members come up with. Regardless of this motion, whether the amendment passed or not, whether the motion passed or not, I look forward to seeing what they come up with and hopefully contributing to it. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Councillor David Taylor.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm pleased that there is an amendment to this motion, as I would certainly vote against the main motion, as Councillor Rowley suggested we might. And that's not because it doesn't come from a good place. I know that Councillor Rowley is true in his desire to help support local businesses, and it's undoubtedly an aim that the council should have and does have. It's just that a free parking bonanza isn't the best way to do it. And there's a good deal of research to show that, although some of that might not apply quite so much in these times of COVID, I grant you. The amendments is, if the administration won't mind me saying so, is rather vague. And I think Councillor Melly alluded to that. I'm sure we'd all like to see more flesh put on those bones, and that there are more innovative ways in which the council can move to improve the lot of our local businesses. I know that all supermarkets have profited from home deliveries during the pandemic. I'd like to see a similar home delivery scheme for York small and independent businesses. And this could be done in part, if not whole, by cycle couriers from the city centre and from suburban shops. Coordination of such a scheme is one example of how the council might help support independent retailers in York. And free parking for a limited time is just a sticking plaster on a wound, which actually requires greater intervention.
Thank you very much. Councillor Norman.
Thank you. Yeah, just I suppose to start by agreeing with a lot of the comments made before, that our city centre is incredibly essential to the economy of the city, and we all need to do as much as we can to support hospitality and shops. I think it is slightly disgraceful that national funding to provide support has been as lacking as it has been. And that the government seems to sort of continue to rely on local government to bail them out over this crisis. But I have to say I am perplexed by both the motion and to an extent the amendment. We are at present in a healthcare crisis, and I do find it baffling that neither the motion nor the amendment makes reference to this. I think to suggest that we should blanketly give free parking after 3, regardless of our tier status during these 2 months, or indeed of the tier status of our neighbouring local authorities, is slightly ridiculous and a dereliction of duty. If York were to enter into tier 1 and Leeds remain in tier 3, is it really safe or wise for us to blanketly push ahead with this proposition? And I think during this crisis, really, flexibility is important, and I would end on that point.
Thank you very much. Councillor Smalley.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and I will not speak at length on this amendment as many councillors before me have already emphasised the key points. I'd like to start by disagreeing with Councillor Eyre, as I don't know anyone who doubts the existence of Santa, and I hope that appears on a topical Foxwood-based blog soon. I'd like to take a few minutes to make clear that this amendment seeks to broaden the scope of our efforts to support local businesses. City of York Council, just like councils across the country, have been instrumental in the country's response to the coronavirus pandemic, including supporting our local businesses for whom, as we've heard today, this year has been one of the most unimaginable challenges. Whilst we continue to do all we can to provide support to our local businesses without anywhere near the adequate government funding alongside it, it is not possible to rapidly pivot in the way the original motion suggests. Since the pandemic was declared, the Council has seen demand for services increase, whilst at the same time income has considerably fallen. The Local Government Association's latest research estimates that in dealing with the significant financial impact caused by extra costs and loss of income, councils still need at least £2 billion more to meet the full financial impact of the pandemic in 2021. The pressure on local services comes as York has been continuously underfunded for a decade by various governments, particularly when compared to other areas in the UK. So, Lord Mayor, we welcome and agree with the call to support businesses, and we must use every lever possible for us to do so. Properly costed and planned policies, which are evidenced to provide genuine return for taxpayer money in regards to increased turnaround for local businesses, is the only way to ensure we can still provide the work to continue to protect livelihoods and jobs for people of York. Therefore, the amendment in front of us seeks to recognise the importance of the work that is ongoing, as well as broaden the scope for intervention to support businesses in targeted and effective manners, whilst respecting the wider strategic sustainability ambitions of this administration. And whilst we disagree on this occasion, I would like to thank the Chair of the York Retail Forum for his time and help over this very difficult year in supporting the city recover and respond to the pandemic. I hope that members will join me in supporting this amendment. Thank you and Merry Christmas, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Smalley. Councillor Doughty, this is speaking on the amendment, not your right to second the motion.
Okay, Lord Mayor, I'm happy to speak when in my reply to right to reply then, if that's okay.
You don't have a right to reply. Councillor Rowley has the right to reply, but you will have a right when we move to the substantive or the amended motion to pick up your right to second the original motion. But at the moment, we are just debating the amendment. I've got no further indications of anybody wishing to speak. Councillor Rowley, you can reply to the amendment, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and I won't need a lot of time. I want to thank members for their contributions to this particular debate. In regards to this amendment, I see it, as I alluded to earlier, quite simply as a wrecking amendment, designed to rip out the whole point of the motion so it actually becomes meaningless. There is another way in which the motion could become meaningless, and that the Lib Dem and Labour groups could vote against it and the motion would fall. That will make it clear that they do not support this specific proposal to help businesses. This amendment doesn't add anything that we would disagree with. We've always shown that we will work to improve public transport usage and that we'd work to net zero on carbon. These are points that I'm personally keen to make at the Climate Change Committee, a committee where Conservative representation isn't formally recognised, but offered by a chair who puts passions before politics. Otherwise, it would have been another demonstration of how party politics comes first to the Liberal Democrats. However, the amendment takes out the key points of the motion and certainly its simplicity. Businesses need help now, and the free after 3 is a simple message that people could understand. Residents thinking about buying online or out of York will hear and read the message and be more likely to shop in York and help our much needed businesses. Residents will not suddenly ponder where they will shop based on the grants given to businesses, the substantial travel initiatives to be brought forward, or a specific desire to help the 2030 carbon neutral goal. As far as the health benefits and the health implications are concerned with regards to this proposal, recently it was printed that 60% of the visitors that currently come to the centre of York are in fact York residents. And so far as there's any detail in the Lib Dem amendment that they can't already do without a motion, action is needed now, not in the future. As they don't support our initiative, they should have the courage to vote against the motion rather than wasting time and trying to spin the picture with this amendment. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Rowley. I will now take a named vote on the amendment, and Dawn will do her usual magic for us. Thank you very much.
Only it were, Lord Mayor. Can you please indicate when I call your name, Councillor, whether you're voting for, against or abstaining in relation to the amendment on the motion? Councillor Aspden.
For.
Councillor Eyre.
For.
Councillor Baker.
For.
Councillor Barker.
For.
Councillor Barnes.
For.
Councillor Carr.
For.
Councillor Craghill.
For.
Councillor Crawshaw.
For.
Councillor Colwick.
For.
Councillor Cuthbertson.
For.
Councillor de Gorne.
For.
Councillor Daubonnet.
For.
Councillor Doherty.
Against.
Councillor Douglas.
For.
Councillor Fenton.
For.
Councillor Fisher.
4.
Councillor Fitzpatrick.
4.
Councillor Galvin.
4.
Councillor Heaton.
4.
Councillor Hollier.
4.
Councillor Hook.
Yeah. 4.
Councillor Hunter.
4.
Councillor Kilbane.
4.
Councillor Lomas.
4.
Councillor Mason.
4.
Councillor Melly.
4.
Councillor Musson.
4.
Councillor Myers.
4.
Councillor Norman.
4.
Councillor Orrell.
4.
Councillor Pavlovic.
4.
Councillor Pearson.
4.
Councillor Perrott.
4.
Councillor Rowley.
Against.
Councillor Runciman. Councillor Runciman. She connected.
Right, try again. 4.
Okay. Councillor Smalley.
4.
Councillor Dave Taylor.
4.
Councillor Callum Taylor.
4.
Councillor Vassey.
4.
Councillor Waller.
4.
Councillor Wan.
4.
Councillor Waters.
Against.
Councillor Wardby.
4.
Councillor Webb.
4.
Councillor Widdowson.
4.
Lord Mayor.
4.
Okay, so that's carried with 3 against.
That motion is carried with 3 against. So the amendment is carried. We now move to whether there's any debate on the amended motion, which is what is now before you. And Councillor Doughty, did you wish to pick up your right to second the, now I know it's not the amended motion, but do you wish to speak, Councillor Doughty?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Yes, I'll just make a few brief comments in reply to some of the comments that have been made by other councillors. Councillor Smalley suggested we should be looking at all incentives to help business, and this is precisely what we're doing with our parking initiative, free after 3 parking. We absolutely support other elements, so we support encouraging cycling, we support the use of public transport. These are all elements that we can support and we must support. It's quite ludicrous from Councillor Eyre to suggest that it takes 2 months to plan and another 2 months to implement. And if that's the case, that just shows how inefficient his administration is at doing anything at all. It's much too late for business to leave it for any length of time. We need to be helping them now, not in the new financial year in April or wherever that might come to suit his inefficient organisation. In terms of reprogramming parking meters, the whole idea of having free after 3 is just that, a simple sign next to the meters to say that people don't need to put any payment in the machine is all that suffices. We do not need any reprogramming of machines. If anyone chooses to contribute to the city by wanting to put payment in, all the better. But there's no need for that. It's just utter absolute nonsense from him. Some comments have been made about not encouraging vehicles or cars into the city. And you know what? I've got some sympathy with people who take that view because, you know, we generally speaking, we want to encourage sustainability. But at the same time, this is a time-limited offer to help city businesses. It's not something that we're going to be doing permanently. and therefore, you know, it's not a long-term policy. It's something to help in the here and now, and that's what's important. So I think I'll wrap up there with my comments. But thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Doughty. I have at the moment 4 people indicating to speak. I'm looking at the clock, which is just gone 7:45. I would like to round up this particular motion before we take the break. So unless somebody has anything desperately burning that hasn't been said, I will take the 4 people who have indicated at the moment, and then I think we might move to a vote. So I've got Councillor Waller.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I think that the amendment does help the motion, providing the opportunity for fine-tuning. And I think I take exception to the comment from Councillor Rowley that this council has been doing nothing, a do-nothing situation. I think that it is a tribute to the work of officers during the pandemic that so much has been done to support businesses across all sectors in York to ensure that they're in the best position to bounce back. There are a number of activities that have been made to ensure that what funding is available has been provided to businesses, but we recognise that you did, Councillor Rowley, that the support hasn't always been as considerable as in other countries, recognising that the government had forced companies to do particular things. In terms of the place on the Climate Change Committee, I understood that there was an offer made which was turned down. So it is by the grace of the chair that a non-voting position has been provided to you. But with there being 2, it's, you know, these things are done on a proportionate basis. Perhaps you'd like to adopt proportional representation. So yeah. York businesses and the council have put a huge effort into making the shopping centres as COVID safe as possible to maintain confidence. And confidence is important because that's what will keep employment going in the city centre and neighbourhood shopping centres. And indeed, recent independent reports from the Centre of Cities showed that footfall held up in York stronger than in many larger destinations. And Councillor Doughty, I actually compliment the comms team in their Be York campaign. I think it succinctly encapsulated the respect for social distancing, wearing of masks, in a campaign which nudged people into doing the right thing and acknowledging that there are other people around them. So I think that it's unfortunate that this debate has been politicised in this way. I think that there's been a considerable amount of joint working with partners to ensure that the city centre kept running throughout the various lockdowns that we've had and the changes that have been worked through. So I do think that the amendment has improved the motion, and there is the opportunity to work more closely with the city centre businesses on a way forward, which ties in with sustainability that this council is committed.
Thank you very much, Councillor Waller. Councillor Bassey. Can you unmute?
I am unmuted. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
You are. You can speak.
I recognise that the council has been working very hard throughout this year to help businesses. And I have to confess, have some sympathy for the position outlined by Councillor Rowley for 2 reasons. One, I have worked for 4 years in the city centre and in retail and have seen how difficult trade is in January and February. So I have some sympathy with him there. And also I live in a rural ward And so again, I have some sympathy with what he is saying, because my residents don't have access to great bus services, and many of them cannot cycle into town. And therefore it is really incumbent on all of us to work together to try and resolve these challenges, both for businesses and for residents and for our wider city. For me, what that says ultimately is that we all have to find it in ourselves to work together consensually to deliver the modal shift in transport that is needed for all of us across this city. And I hope that in the months ahead, we do that we work more together on a mobility plan that will deliver something for all citizens across York in terms of public transport and in terms of cycling. And I hope also that we recognise that if we're ever going to wean ourselves off relying on car parking as part of our fundamental income in this city to keep services going, then we have to find alternatives that generate an income for the city. The city has got to be more imaginative, has got to find more vision. All of that said, I accept the reassurances that have been given in the amendment that many things are being done, and I look forward to seeing them all being delivered, because the truth of it is we all need this to happen, businesses and residents alike. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Kilbane.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Given the large majority in favour of this amendment and given the amount of business we've got to get through tonight, I propose we move to the vote.
Thank you very much. Is that seconded? Seconded by Councillor Rowley.
Lord Mayor, forgive me, Lord Mayor. I'm not seconding. Lord Mayor, please, with the greatest of respect.
I'll second it, Lord Mayor.
With the greatest of respect, Lord Mayor. Please, can I have a point of clarification, Lord Mayor? I am more than happy for members to challenge me at any time on what I actually said. I categorically did not say that this council has done or nothing. I said there was a danger that it could be perceived to have done nothing. And I want that clarification. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much. I've had a mover and a seconder that we move to the vote. Can I see a quick indication of those in favour of moving to the vote? I think that is carried. Right, we'll move to the vote. Dawn?
Please indicate whether you're voting for, against or abstaining as usual for the motion as amended. Councillor Aspden?
For.
Councillor Eyre?
For.
Councillor Baker?
For.
Councillor Barker?
For.
Councillor Barnes?
For.
Councillor Carr?
For.
Councillor Craghill?
For.
Councillor Crawshaw?
For.
Councillor Colwick?
For.
Councillor Cuthbertson?
For.
Councillor de Gorne?
For.
Councillor Daubonnet?
For.
Councillor Doherty?
Abstain.
Councillor Douglas?
For.
Councillor Fenton?
For.
Councillor Fisher?
For.
Councillor Fitzpatrick?
For.
Councillor Galvin?
For.
Councillor Heaton?
For.
Councillor Hollier?
For.
Councillor Hook?
For.
Councillor Hunter?
For.
Councillor Kilbane?
For.
Councillor Lomas?
For.
Councillor Mason?
For.
Councillor Melly?
For.
Councillor Musson?
For.
Councillor Myers?
For.
Councillor Norman?
For.
Councillor Orrell?
For.
Councillor Pavlovic?
Yep, sorry, for.
Councillor Pearson?
For.
Councillor Perrott?
For.
Councillor Rowley?
Abstain.
Councillor Runciman?
For.
Councillor Smalley?
For.
Councillor Dave Taylor?
4.
Councillor Callum Taylor.
4.
Councillor Vassy.
4.
Councillor Waller.
4.
Councillor Wan.
4.
Councillor Waters.
Against.
Councillor Wardby.
4.
Councillor Webb.
4.
Councillor Widdowson.
4.
Lord Mayor.
4.
Okay, so that's everyone 4 except 1 against and 2 abstentions.
Right,
So
that is carried with a pretty much everybody for 2 abstentions and 1 against. And we have done fantastically. I am now going to close this half of the meeting. We are going to have a 15-minute break, so you can do what you like. I shall find, I think somewhere in this room is a mince pie, which I shall go and locate, as well as a cup of coffee. If I'd thought to bring the gin, I would have brought it, but I forgot. So it's you're more privileged at your end. You can all access what you like. I'm restricted. So anyway, we'll be back at 8:15 to take up the second part of and it is a fresh mince pie, Councillor Vassy, handmade by somebody very devoted. Thank you. Right, we're closing off. Great. Okay, we are all systems go. That is fantastic. It is just about 8:15, and we're all back. Can I just say, I really cannot cope with chat. I mean, if you're trying, I don't mind chat, but don't expect me to read it because I don't have time with all the other things I'm trying to keep on top of. So if you've got a terribly frantic message that you want to, I think you'll just have to put your hand up and say it out loud, if that's all right, because I won't read it on chat. I don't have time, and I can't cope with doing 3 things at once. 2, no problems. Right, let's move on then to the next motion on the order paper, which is from Councillor Craghill. You are here to find the sweet spot. That sounds to me terribly close to being slightly suggestive, but I'm probably out of date. Councillor Craghill to move.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. We'll come to that in a moment. How the economy works is crucial for everyone's basic well-being, quite obviously. Money isn't everything, as they say, but it is obvious that if you don't have enough for the basics, money and the opportunities to earn money are pretty crucial. As we all know, this is a particularly stark reality at present for many, many people in the face of COVID, recession, and job losses. Equally, we all know there are times when some of the things that we do in the name of the economy have a negative impact on the environment, whether that is climate change emissions, habitat loss, pollution, or using up natural resources. And those environmental impacts in turn can have a huge effect on people's lives, livelihoods, health, and well-being. Basically, we know that there are complicated relationships between economy, environment, and society. And this council has already recognised this to some extent through developing the Better Decision-Making tool. However, there is also a fair degree of consensus that our decision-making tool could work even more effectively and have a wider impact. The approach to decision-making and policy development advocated by Oxford academic Kate Rayworth and known as donut economics is currently inspiring a lot of people across the globe. Referred to by some people as a recipe for thriving, its central idea is built around the inner and outer circles that make up the donut. The outer circle being the planetary boundaries or environmental impacts which threaten our future safe existence, such as climate change, habitat loss, and pollution. And the inner circle being the social foundation, the elements that are required for everyone to have a good life, including social equity, political voice, education, and the basics such as food, water, health, housing, income, and work. The sweet spot, Lord Mayor, the sweet spot for humanity globally and locally lies between the 2 circles, so the donut. The approach also emphasises the strength of human potential to collaborate, which we have seen a lot of during the last year in York, and also suggests that the economy is about more than just markets and the state, but also about households where a lot of unpaid work is done, and about volunteering and community. It's also about the complexity of these relationships. So this motion isn't asking you to sign up to all of this right now, simply to support the proposal that we all learn more about it and consider how it might enrich our policy making. This is a time of great challenge, but also an opportunity to embrace new and innovative ways of working to meet those challenges. So please support the motion.
Thank you. Are we seconded? Are you seconding this, Councillor Widdowson?
No, Councillor Baker.
Councillor Baker, are you
Yeah.
seconding this?
Yes, thanks,
Right.
Chair.
Do you wish to
Hi.
speak?
Yes, thank you. So just not to repeat, but merely to highlight the key points that Councillor Craghill has given us about the concept of donut economics. It's not a new concept. It was first published by a female economist and senior research associate at Oxford University back in 2012. and has since been widely influential in the field of sustainable development. So here at City of York Council now, we do really need a fresh thinking kind of approach to decision making that ensures we meet the needs of our residents without jeopardising the environment on which we all depend. So, for example, of where it's been influential already, the donut has been implemented at Cornwall Council in what they call their decision-making wheel. And it's helping them meet their climate ambitions without disadvantaging any of their residents. The inner wheel focuses on the economics and social justice, and it's balanced on the outer wheel, which focuses on environmental issues like greenhouse gas emissions and biodiversity. And I would encourage you all to look it up and have a look at the wheel yourselves and try and locate that sweet spot for yourselves. So Cornwall Council have said it is helping us to connect up how we live and how we use money better for ourselves and the environment. As you know, City of York Council is committed to taking bold and immediate action on the climate emergency. So if we do consider donut economics when reviewing our better decision-making tool, we've got this opportunity to consider the needs of our residents and the endangered environment side by side, or round about each other, or however you want to look at it, or within each other, and innovatively and of course fairly. So we welcome the collaborative efforts of all councillors to address the needs of our residents, as we're all doing, and we hope that you'll support this motion, continue to work collectively towards a brighter, greener and fairer future for York.
Thank you very much. I have Councillor Woodison to speak.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Firstly, I would like to indicate that the Liberal Democrat group will be supporting this motion tonight. I would also like to take a few minutes to highlight the ongoing work which has already seen us pave the path for a green recovery and a sustainable and inclusive future for our city. I am proud to say that in York we are taking a bold and holistic approach to tackling the climate crisis. With the appointment of the new head of carbon reduction, work is well underway to produce an ambitious climate change strategy, which will include a decarbonisation action plan for our own operations, as well as wider actions for the city. York's Climate Commission is set to meet early in the new year to assist and accelerate these city-wide plans. Whilst I'm sure you've heard me list our many achievements and ambitions in live stream meetings, we really must acknowledge that York is leading the way regionally and nationally with the introduction of ambitious plans to improve our city's air quality and tackle the climate emergency. Since the new administration was formed, York now has the first and currently the only voluntary clean air zone in the UK, the largest zero-emission park and ride fleet in the country. The administration has committed to redeveloping our local transport plan, invested £1.5 million in hyperhub technology to provide rapid electric vehicle charging, committed to a major housing retrofit programme, introduced electric double-decker buses and electric waste vehicles, and approved plans to plant 50,000 trees and deliver a new community woodland for our city. I'm pleased to say that our environmental ambitions encompass both key long-term policies as well as decision-making and wider council strategy. Take, for example, our ambitious housing delivery programme, which focuses on taking a holistic approach to the low-carbon future of our city, or the recent significant amendment to the overall objectives of the council's asset management strategy, which saw us commit to strongly incorporate the impacts of carbon neutrality commitment in the way we manage council's extensive list of assets. These new commitments follow what is now commonplace practice of including the One Planet Council better decision-making tool in the council reports to analyse and take into consideration the impact of any proposal on the health and well-being of communities, the environment and the local economy. Whilst we welcome the exploration of new ideas and approaches which would support and enhance our ambitious plans, we must recognise the work already taking place to deliver a greener and more inclusive York for generations to come.
30 seconds. That's very good. Thank you, Councillor Widdowson. Councillor Kilbane.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and I will try and stick to the topic under debate. We will be supporting this motion. We're very happy to help the Greens try and find their sweet spot. And hopefully we can achieve it. It's The only sort of reservations we have really is we think it probably doesn't go far enough, both in the ambition of the motion and actually donut economics itself really doesn't go far enough. As we all know, liberal economics has for the past 250 years created great misery and destitution for working people, and now it's delivered us a climate crisis, a disaster that is impending, that is directly as a result of the last 250 years of liberal economics. So we can't carry on as business as usual. We do need to try other ways of organising the economy. In the past, working people have only ever got any joy from the economy when states or other governmental factors have intervened to force the owners and controllers of capital to share the wealth that's being created. I don't think that donut economics does this, but again, you know, it's a step in the right direction to try and create an economically just and sustainable future. But moving along that path is going to be a bit of a journey. And I think we're going to need some brave politicians, really, because the decisions that we have to take will not always be immediately popular with our electorate. And we need politicians who aren't going to pander to the electorate. We're going to need politicians who will take those arguments out to the electorate and are willing to go on that journey themselves. So yes, we're happy to get involved and happy to support. I just wonder, once the consequences of this journey and the direction of travel start to become clear, how many of the politicians in this room and how many of the politicians in the ruling coalition will be willing to carry on that journey.
Thank you very much. Councillor Waller.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Many of the key points have been made already, so I won't dwell on those. I think the key issues I do want to raise is in reflection to the Council's new economic strategy, which is twin track, to continue the focus on developing high-paid jobs, but also to look at inclusive and clean growth across the economy. And as the previous speaker alluded to, there are difficult decisions, but equally by not taking those decisions, you don't recognise the principles of a just transition. There will be, in the change in the economy, some jobs that will disappear. And as Mark Carney, the previous Governor of the Bank of England, remarked, we cannot have a repeat of the previous situation where many villages were left without a business because of the closure of their major industry. Therefore, developing a just transition is important, and it's a key part of the concept behind this motion. And I think it's a key thing for Cornwall, given what's happened to that over the centuries. And Councillor Kilbane, I am a proud Keynesian and a supporter of the Yellow Book for liberal economic philosophy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Taylor, Callum Taylor.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Can we move to the vote, please?
Is that seconded? Councillor, somebody who hasn't spoken needs to second it. Okay, yes, Councillor Culwick has seconded it. Can I just see by a show of hands, very clearly shown, who is in favour of moving to the vote? Raise your hands very clearly. I think that's the majority. Can I see anybody who's absolutely against moving to the vote? No, I think we're carried. Okay, move to the vote and we will follow the process as always.
Okay, everyone. When I call your name, please indicate whether you're voting for, against or abstaining in relation to this particular motion. Sweet spot. Councillor Aspden.
For.
Councillor Eyre.
For.
Councillor Baker.
For.
Councillor Barker.
For.
Councillor Barnes.
For.
Councillor Carr,
For.
Councillor Craghill,
4.
Councillor Crawshaw,
4.
Councillor Culwick,
4.
Councillor Cuthbertson,
4.
Councillor de Gorn,
4.
Councillor Dauburnay,
4.
Councillor Doherty,
4.
Councillor Douglas,
4.
Councillor Fenton,
4.
Councillor Fisher,
4.
Councillor Fitzpatrick,
4.
Councillor Galvin,
4.
Councillor Heaton,
4.
Councillor Hollier,
4.
Councillor Hook,
4.
Councillor Hunter,
4.
Councillor Kilbane,
4.
Councillor Lomas,
4.
Councillor Mason,
4.
Councillor Melly,
4.
Councillor Musson,
4.
Councillor Myers,
4.
Councillor Norman,
4.
Councillor Orrell,
4.
Councillor Pavlovich,
4.
Councillor Pearson,
4.
Councillor Perrott,
4.
Councillor Rowley,
4.
Councillor Runciman,
4.
Councillor Smalley,
4.
Councillor Dave Taylor,
4.
Councillor Callum Taylor,
4.
Councillor Vassy,
4.
Councillor Waller,
4.
Councillor Wan,
4.
Councillor Waters,
Abstain.
Councillor Wardby,
4.
Councillor Webb,
4.
Councillor Widdowson,
4.
Lord Mayor.
4.
That's 45 4. So carried.
I
and
think
one
we are
abstention.
carried on that one. It's 45 votes in favour, 1 abstention.
Yeah.
And 1 abstention. So thank you very much indeed. We now move on to the third motion, stand up for carers. Councillor Hook, I believe you are moving this motion.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I am pleased to propose our motion to recognise the crucial work carers across our city continue to do despite major financial and emotional burdens, and call for the carers' allowance to be increased to give them the support they need. The ongoing pandemic has taught us many lessons, but none possibly more important than the realisation that our communities rely on our frontline and healthcare workers. Caring for people's health doesn't stop at the hospital exit or the GP's surgery door. There are around 19,000 carers in York who look after a family member or friend who is elderly or has a disability or a mental or physical illness. Unpaid carers are fighting the same battle as care staff and many of our NHS workers, yet they do it behind closed doors and with far less recognition. Unlike our fantastic frontline workers, they are unable to clock off from their caring responsibilities. Many are overwhelmed and incredibly anxious about how they will manage in the weeks ahead, with the coronavirus crisis compounding the difficulties many carers face every day. Recent research suggests that carers' costs have risen throughout the year, whilst their benefits are not keeping pace. 81% of carers are spending more during the coronavirus outbreak. Carers' allowance, the main benefit for people caring for family or friends, remains the lowest benefit of its kind at £67.25 a week for a minimum of 35 hours of care. This barely reflects the support that carers currently provide and is dependent on many entitlement conditions, including an earnings limit. Whilst 2,351 unpaid carers in York are entitled to receive carers allowance, only 1,472 currently do. Carers in York are vital in our local effort to keep vulnerable people safe and continue to do a selfless and remarkable job in very difficult circumstances. Despite the huge contribution unpaid carers make to our communities, too many face financial hardship. Universal credit and working tax credit claimants have rightly benefited from a £20 a week increase during the coronavirus lockdown, meaning they will be up to £1,040 a year better off because of the changes. The government has chosen not to extend this uplift to legacy benefits or the carers allowance. Surely, when the majority of carers are providing even more care for relatives during this pandemic and spending more to do so, they deserve some help. The government must acknowledge the impact the pandemic is having on carers' finances and job prospects and raise carers' allowance as a matter of urgency. Our motion tonight calls on the Council to lobby national government to increase carers' allowance by £1,000 a year, in line with the £20 a week uplift in universal credit, with equivalent increases in carer premium and the carer addition. It is crucial that this uplift also includes those who do not receive the allowance due to overlapping benefits. I hope members will vote to support this motion so we can recognise the vital role that unpaid carers play. It can only be right that we give back to carers who have done so much for others during this crisis.
Thank you very much. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Daubeny, do you wish to speak?
I do. Thank you, Lord Mayor. That's very kind. I should like to second the motion and echo some of the points raised by Councillor Hook. It shouldn't have taken a pandemic to shine a spotlight on the struggles of our cities and countries' unpaid carers. How society treats people in this position is symbolic of its values, and I believe that current and previous governments have fallen well short on this matter. According to a recent Carers UK report, over 55% of unpaid carers currently feel overwhelmed by their caring responsibilities, and 81% are spending more money during the coronavirus outbreak. Just 1 in 8 unpaid carers say they have been getting enough support from the social care system, with many exhausted, lonely, and worried about their finances. And the struggles didn't just start in March this year. Unpaid carers bore the brunt of austerity following the last recession. And in 2016, research from the Human Policy Institute exposed that 1.2 million working-age carers were living in poverty. In a survey carried out by the Council in 2019, 46% of adult carers in York said they're carrying a cause of financial difficulties. Yet, despite all this, the carers allowance in England and Wales remains at just £67.25 a week. That's not good enough. And it's certainly not fair that unpaid carers' costs are rising while their benefits fail to keep pace. Carers feel they've just been abandoned by the government during the pandemic. Others on legacy benefits and carers' allowance facing significant extra costs due to the pandemic, just as those on universal credit. The answer is clearly yes. So the £20 increase introduced earlier in the year should also be payable to them. Carers face extraordinary challenges, and they are unsung heroes of our city and our country. They provide day in, day out support for their loved ones and ours. Now more than ever, the government should recognise their compassion and their resilience in giving them the support they need. I would urge all members to support this motion, sending a clear message to all carers in the city, both paid and unpaid. You are valued, respected and important. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much. Councillor David Taylor.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I appreciate this motion. There is nothing in which I would wish to disagree with it. I do remember, however, some years ago, the council externalised a number of jobs of care workers from the employer of the council to private companies. And some of the lowest paid workers who work for the council were then paid by those private companies £2 less per hour than they were when they worked for the council after a period of TUPE readjustment. So nothing to disagree with this motion, but let's not remember what the council did to care workers who were our employers in the past.
Thank you very much. Councillor Perrott.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I think it's a really important point that Councillor Taylor just raised, so thank you for that. And I think it's also important that we say out loud, we do acknowledge that clapping and warm words of thanks just don't pay the bills, and Christmas is a very expensive time of year. Carers give so much and earn so little, we really do have to make this right. So as such, I mean, the Labour group, we're supporting this motion and we're completely behind the cause to increase carers allowance, but I fear the amount that's been proposed just isn't enough. A £20 increase, it'll make a difference, but moving from £67 a week to 87 is just going to leave people struggling financially while juggling the physical and emotional demands of caring for a loved one. And I think there's more to do as well for us to get our own house in order. As Councillor David Taylor mentioned, you know, we have outsourced care in the past, and then it has led to a decrease in workers' terms and conditions. But I don't think it's enough for us to just call on national government to fix some of these issues. And I do urge the council to proactively seek out the nearly 900 individuals that are referred to in this motion who are not currently receiving carers allowance, and encourage them to apply. We can do this now. We don't have to wait for this be recommended in a report in a few months' time. Let's just do the right thing for these carers right now. I also ask that we don't forget that there are 2,000 care workers in York who are paid below the real living wage. For years, the Labour group's been demanding the council take action over the care contracts it commissions and to introduce an ethical care charter and ensure that all the providers we use pay the real living wage. We shouldn't seek to care for our residents on the cheap. And if the private companies we buy care services from refuse to pay the living wage, then we should step up and have it as a council-run service again and bring it back in-house. People have every right to a decent standard of living that reflects the skills required and the challenging nature of care roles, which call daily for people to dig deep and give their very best. And we want to achieve those standards of care which respect, safeguard and promote independence and value in individuals' strengths and personalities. I hope that this motion is a beginning and that we go much further to support our carers. So I'm just urging you to really be bold. Let's meet this challenge head on. When we get these recommendations, let's really try and fix this, because care isn't working in the city. And I'm just going to finish on a quick quote from a recent report from the Women's Budget Group, A Care-Led Recovery from Coronavirus, which states that investment in care is not only needed to transform our broken care system, it's an excellent way to stimulate employment, reduce the gender employment gap and counter the inevitable economic recession as the UK comes out of lockdown. Any investment in care in the UK would produce 2.7 times as many jobs as an equivalent investment in construction. I really do that we as a council cannot afford not to invest in care. So please do be bold, bring some really great recommendations back, because we can't keep clapping for carers and not taking care of them. So please do everything you can for carers this Christmas.
Thank you very much. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I wasn't going to speak much about the motion. I think my colleagues have done a good job at doing that, but just wanted to share some of my experiences of unpaid carers and how that reflects on families and society. In my family, I've got six relatives that are blind, and the people that care for them are brothers, sisters, mums, dads, and their own offspring. It's it's a job nobody comes into, but it's a job that people take on, and we've highlighted very clearly that these people are not paid carers. They don't see themselves as carers. They're family members often, giving what they've got because it's what they do and it's just part of their lives. They help people to have normal, or best as they can, social lives. They help them to carry on in the household and be able to live as independently as they can. And I think, we've said a lot about paid carers, but it's so important that we remember these people that just get on and do things. And I think particularly on young people. I remember when I was young, relying on my sister, who was 3 or 4 years younger than me, to navigate places and find the way around, read the menu to me or whatever else it might have been. So I think we've got to not lose sight of the young people as well that are affected by having caring responsibilities. We've said that they're often forgotten about, and during this pandemic, carers have actually saved the government £530 million every day by stepping in and covering that gap. I think it's really important that we kind of recognise that and continue to do so. We know that carers at the minute are twice as likely to be using food banks. And again, the mental and physical strain that they've taken on when other services have had to take a step back during the pandemic. I think we can't lose sight of that extra pressure. So I would urge everyone to support this motion. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Councillor Doughty.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I think we're probably all pretty much in support generally, but I think the point of the motion really is a question of it being a Lib Dem leaflet filler, as Councillor Hook talks about carers being overlooked by the government, but then says the pandemic has opened our eyes to the work of carers. Well, I, for one, have always been aware of the great work carers do, and I think it's a shame the Lib Dems were in the main evidently unaware. It's worrying the Lib Dems believe as it takes a motion for the executive member to consider the welfare of carers. This should be a fundamental aspect to their role, but if they need to be told by full council to do it, then we're happy to give them that steer. On the issue of the amount of carers allowance, I agree. I feel it's too low, but there's not been a slippage in recent years. This is something all parties at national level have tolerated. However, it's not an issue the council can influence. And as we've always said, motions should be about making a difference for York residents, not Lib Dem campaigns. What council can influence is the budget. In a year where we've seen fortunes spent on hitting motorists with new traffic schemes, where council allowances have been increased by themselves, and where we've seen outrageous £400,000 payoffs to former chief executives, it'll be interesting to see the tangible money put forward benefiting carers from the council this year. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Runciman.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'd just like to take a few minutes to highlight the work that's ongoing already to support unpaid carers across the city. Commissioned by the council, the main support to carers in York comes from the York Carers Centre. This is the first point of contact for carers of all ages and backgrounds in the city. It is an immensely respected service, providing information, support, advice and engagement throughout communities. Alongside the Carers Centre, to which I've been several times, there are other organisations such as Tuvida, Age UK, In Safe Hands, and specific short break services such as the newly built facility for children with disabilities, the Beehive Centre of Excellence. They all provide excellent support to carers in York. Recognising the difficulties facing unpaid carers, so as those noted by my colleagues earlier, at the end of last year, we launched a new 5-year strategy for supporting unpaid carers in York, with the overall vision to create a carer-friendly city. Written by the Carers Strategy Group, which represents health and social care organisations, including the council and charities, as well as families and carers themselves, the York Carers Strategy sets out action plans which seek to bring our wider ambition to life. These include educating service providers, employers, and the wider community on carers and their needs and the barriers that they face, promoting the excellent available support, supporting carers to access and remain in employment, and crucially, directly involving carers in the development of personalised support models to recognise their different needs and challenges of the unpaid carers across the city. Although the pandemic saw the progression of the action plans put on hold, the city-wide Carers Strategy Group has committed to reviewing the plans in the light of the challenges brought about to us all by the coronavirus outbreak. And the first meeting is set to take place in a few weeks, and this will include carers, partners, and all stakeholders. We are working with carers to make sure their views, experiences, thoughts, and ideas are taken seriously. This should genuinely make a difference in creating better support and provision locally. Whilst we can give carers their voice and initial support, it's the government who must recognise that unpaid carers not only deserve, but require an increase in their current financial support. This is needed by the thousands of carers across the city and millions across the country who continue to do a selfless and remarkable job in very difficult circumstances.
Can I bring you
Lord
to a
Mayor.
halt? Thank you very much, Councillor Runciman. I've got no more indications to speak, so now, right of reply. Councillor Hook, do you wish to say anything to the points that have been raised?
No, but I'd like to thank everyone for their support. Thank you.
That's very good and sweet and succinct. Right, we will take a vote on this motion. Sorry? I've got a point of order from the side here. We thought we'd lost somebody, but I don't think we have. Have I got everybody? You with us, Councillor Crawshaw? That's all right. Good. Okay. Yes.
More systems.
All right. Well, we'll take the vote. Dawn?
Yep. Okay. As usual, please indicate whether you are voting for, against, or abstaining in relation to the carers motion. Councillor Aston.
For.
Councillor Eyre.
For.
Councillor Baker.
For.
Councillor Barker.
For.
Councillor Barnes.
For.
Councillor Carr.
For.
Councillor Craghill.
For.
Councillor Crawshaw.
For.
Councillor Colwick.
For.
Councillor Cuthbertson.
For.
Councillor de Gorne.
For.
Councillor Daubonnet.
For.
Councillor Doherty.
For.
Councillor Douglas.
For.
Councillor Fenton.
For.
Councillor Fisher.
For.
Councillor Fitzpatrick.
For.
Councillor Galvin.
For.
Councillor Heaton.
For.
Councillor Hollier.
For.
Councillor Hook.
For.
Councillor Hunter.
For.
Councillor Kilbane.
I'm not actually in the room.
He's
Oh, yes, he
declared an
has.
interest.
Yes, yeah. Councillor Lomas.
For.
Councillor Mason.
For.
Councillor Melly.
For.
Councillor Musson.
For.
Councillor Myers.
For.
Councillor Norman.
For.
Councillor Orrell.
For.
Councillor Pavlovic.
For.
Councillor Pearson.
For.
Councillor Perrott.
For.
Councillor Rowley.
For.
Councillor Runciman.
For.
Councillor Smalley.
For.
Councillor Dave Taylor.
For.
Councillor Callum Taylor.
For.
Councillor Vassy.
For.
Councillor Waller.
For.
Councillor Wan.
For.
Councillor Waters.
For.
Councillor Wardby. Councillor Wardby.
For. Can you hear me?
Can now, yeah.
Yeah, for.
Councillor Webb.
For.
Councillor Widdowson.
For.
Lord Mayor.
For.
That's unanimous.
A unanimous vote in favour. Thank you very much indeed. And we now come to the final motion on the order paper, and welcome back, Councillor Kilbane. Councillor Webb, you are moving this motion.
I am, Lord Mayor. Thank you. Council, the facts are stark. We've just witnessed the biggest rate of downturn in 16 to 24-year-old employment for 2 decades. In Britain today, 10% of 16 to 24-year-olds in work are on 0 hours contracts. Britain's 16 to 24-year-olds type of employment tends to be far more concentrated in the retail, food services and accommodation sector. And probably most worrying for this council, since August 2019, £500,000 of unallocated council apprenticeship levy has been returned to the Treasury due to it not being spent within an imposed 2-year deadline. COVID-19 has laid bare the inequalities in our system and the reliance on low-paid, insecure work. We believe that this council has to do all it can to support its young workers by using this unallocated council apprenticeship levy in York. This could either be by using it to train staff in-house or shared out amongst other employers throughout the city. This could, of course, potentially benefit workers of any age. But our youngest, who are most likely to be lacking skills and training due to the fact that they've yet to have any experience, will surely benefit the most. Best of all, this doesn't have to cost any money. In fact, the money is sitting in York right now. But every month, more and more of it slips through our fingers and rolls back to Westminster. We ask the council to plan for the future, including incorporating future apprenticeship intake into longer-term workforce planning, and report back to executive with those plans. We also ask the council to support scrutiny of this plan in order to check its robustness. Finally, we ask the Chief Operating Officer to write to the Secretary of State for Work and Pensions and the Chancellor and ask them to consider expanding the Kickstart scheme. This has to be a scheme that truly benefits young people and supports them into long-term employment without any significant barriers. Currently, the Kickstart scheme runs for a maximum of 6 months and can only really be accessed directly by employers who can fund 30 places, and it stops in a year. Now, whilst I'm sure that this scheme could potentially disguise some truly embarrassing numbers for the government right now, created by their dither and delay over this year, it really isn't good enough. It's a sticking plaster on the side of this broken dam. If this government truly believes in supporting the left behind, well, then this new generation of workers entering the workplace now in a pandemic and at a time of financial turmoil created by Brexit are definitely going to be left behind unless the government does something about it. Council, I ask you to support this motion, and I ask you to support our most vulnerable workers by getting our act together and doing what we can. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do I have a seconder? Somebody must be seconding it. Councillor Douglas, sorry, yep, I'm with you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Council, I'm seconding this important motion as I look ahead with a great deal of concern about the outlook for employment and training for the young people of our city. The economic and labour market shocks caused by the COVID-19 pandemic are not likely to recover to pre-pandemic levels for around 5 years if statistical trends for past recessions are to be used as a gauge. We can't stand by and watch a valuable publicly funded resource, the council's apprenticeship levy pot, standing at £1 million, leave our city and return to the Treasury. Taxpayers' money lost to our city for good. I acknowledge the good work the council skills team and apprenticeship hub have done in working with external employers in the city, helping them to access and run highly effective apprenticeship schemes, helping them to make best use of their apprenticeship levy. This has proved to be challenging for employers and highly rewarding. It has seen the development of excellent employment and training opportunities for many of our city's young people. It's now time for the City of York Council to get its own house in order and show the level of commitment to our own apprenticeship and training opportunities for young people, as has been shown in encouraging and supporting external employers. To act as the exemplar employer we know CYC is, promoting good practice among other employers in our city and showing how it can and should be done. Appropriate resource planning is vital to achieve this, making sure that new CYC employment opportunities and in-work progression for both new entrants and existing staff use the levy to get the best outcome for the employees, the council, the public and our city's workforce. This positive and much needed action is fully within the council's power. And as Councillor Webb said, I paraphrase, let's start by getting our act together to do what we can. We can start today by supporting this motion and making sure CYC is a full and active participant in developing the next generation of workers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have Councillor Aston.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. I just wanted to welcome the motion in front of us and set out a few ways that we can look to work across political divides to respond to the pandemic and improve the lives of our residents, businesses and communities. Whilst the Council's immediate response to the economic challenges brought about by the pandemic has been swift and far-reaching, there is a need to work out a long-term approach to enable us to tackle the major challenges ahead. We fully recognise the importance of developing a longer-term strategy to build back better. And this is why a longer-term 10-year city plan is being developed with city partners to confirm our ambitions for York. The linking of our education, skills and innovation sectors to support employment will be a key building block of that long-term strategy, alongside the Council's economic strategy, as will be mentioned by Councillor Waller. I'm happy to continue our commitment to apprenticeships and training, including providing biannual updates. Our commitment to a sustainable recovery and a green economy will bring with it the need to speed up the transformation of training. A recent LGA report on projected net zero carbon jobs shows that there is a potential for over 1.18 million low carbon jobs in England by 2050. And as we transition to a green and sustainable economy, that leads to the possibility of 4,000 to 5,000 green jobs estimated to be created in York. Our recovery plans highlight the Council's commitment to work with education providers and businesses to develop a workforce with skills fit for the new economy, with the development of an adult learning and skills plan. The motion is rightly addressing the need for further government support in order to deliver our local recovery and growth plans, including for young people, and to ensure that we're able to protect jobs and deliver skill provision fit for the new economy. By continuing to work together and focusing on what the city does well, we can adapt and take the opportunities to provide an economy that works for all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Fitzpatrick.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm pleased to be supporting this motion from a slightly different aspect, but one that does need to be recognised, I think, by all of us. We're all corporate parents in the city. And we recently, on the Human Rights and Equalities Board, had a report on the NEET population, which was written at the beginning, really, of the pandemic. And the numbers then were stark. And I'm talking about children not in education, employment and training. And I feel that this motion actually addresses part of that, which is that we can try and provide something for young people to work towards. But the most important thing is there are too many falling through the cracks. We know at the moment that the numbers of children attending school has decreased. We hope that that will be rectified in time with a vaccine, but it's worrying times. We're all corporate parents. We've all got a responsibility for the next generation of young people. And I think the consequences of not supporting this motion or doing what's suggested means that we're failing in our duty as corporate parents. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Waller.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I welcome this motion and we will be supporting this. Action is already in train. The decision session on the 24th of November set out an approach which will ensure the council maximises the use of the transfer of levy to other employers in the city through the supply chain, but also to utilise the team, which I'm grateful that Councillor Douglas recognised the work that they've done, the skills and apprenticeship levy team in brokering means by which a range of businesses in the city can maximise use of what is quite a complex government scheme. And so I've tasked them with finding the barriers. One of the major barriers is that the apprenticeship levy can't be spent on the salary. And I think we've now reached a critical time with the consequence of COVID on the economy, that barrier should be lifted. There will be other issues, but I think it's important that we make sure that every available resource is used to help people to retrain, and particularly the 16 to 24 age group, which has been identified as most likely to miss out as a consequence of what's happened. Therefore, together with the new skills board, which has met today, and I hope that the chairs of the relevant scrutiny committees won't mind me contacting them over the Christmas holiday to sort out how their involvement in the development of a skills strategy is worked into the system. There was very great support for that principle, and that by that way we can go forward as a city to ensure that the challenges of employment are met, but also the challenges of transforming the economy. Many jobs will require new skills, and therefore the opportunity to ensure we're ready for the green inclusive growth is important. Thank you, Lord.
Thank you very much. Councillor Orrell.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Whilst the debate and plans surrounding apprenticeships and skills has rightfully moved well beyond provision for school leavers and young people, such support is still vital in ensuring that we can deliver jobs for the future economy. Extensive work has been taking place with key skills and education partners in York. Askham Bryan College, York College, University of York, York St John University, York Learning and our council to develop and deliver one-year skills plans and 10-year skills strategy. This will underpin our work to deliver a high-paying and inclusive economy. As the motion states, apprenticeships are a crucial path into employment, with 90% of people in an apprenticeship staying in employment once their training is complete. As set out by Councillor Waller, apprenticeships will have a key role to play in helping the city's economic recovery, particularly if local organisations are able to take on young people aged 24 and under. The current apprenticeship levy, the key policy currently in place nationally, is highly restrictive. Even before COVID-19, the salary and 5% training costs of a new apprenticeship were key barriers for small businesses. Whilst the reduction in numbers of apprenticeships we have seen this year was mainly due to COVID restrictions, concerns from managers about the complexity of apprenticeships and requirements to find salary costs remains the major barrier. I therefore welcome the work that is currently ongoing to ensure that the unallocated levy from the complex and restrictive apprenticeship levy fund is reinvested back into the city by offering more help to local businesses. This will provide extra assistance to local organisations wanting to upskill their existing workforce or grow their businesses through hiring new apprentices. The Chancellor's funding announcements have the potential to stimulate demand for apprentices by helping to mitigate at least some of the financial barriers. By offering to transfer levy funds to local small and medium businesses, our council would in effect cover the 5% training cost for these employers and consequently help to broaden their choice of training provider. This would enable training providers to engage with more local businesses and influence York's apprenticeship provider network to develop more local provision. Extensive work is already ongoing locally and regionally to ensure that—
Can we wind up?
1 second, Lord Mayor. And funding for apprenticeships is provided. Therefore, I welcome this motion and look forward to cross-party working to ensure we can provide as much support as possible to young people.
Thank you very much, Councillor Orrell. I've seen nobody else raise their hand. So, Councillor Webb, is there anything you want to say by way of your right to reply?
Yes, please, Lord Mayor. Thank you very much, councillors, for general support. That is really heartening. I'd like to just point out a couple of things. Firstly, Thank you to Councillor Waller, sorry, and Councillor Orrell. I blended you two then somehow. And for mentioning the £500,000. I did think that Councillor Aspden had forgotten £500,000 there, which was slightly concerning, but I'm glad that you picked that up later on, because I do think that is something that needs to be focused on. That is something that we can have a tangible change on. I think if we've seen anything from the government this year, waiting for them to come up with a coherent plan, we're going to be waiting forever. So I think we have to do what we can right now, because the nature of young people is they tend to grow up quite quickly. So them being 16 to 24, a year's time, they won't be in that gap. So we need to do what we can now. My final point, I think, would be to thank Councillor Fitzpatrick for highlighting our role as corporate parents, something that so often actually I think some of us may forget and some of us don't take as seriously as we should. I think it's absolutely essential that we think of it like that, that we have to be the responsible adults, we have to be the corporate parents who are supporting these young people. So thank you all for your support.
Thank you very much. I will now ask Dawn to deal with the named vote. All yours.
Thank you.
And this may be the last one.
I was just going to say that, Lord Mayor. Thank you. It should be the last named vote of the evening. So please indicate, as usual, whether you are voting for, against or abstaining in relation to Councillor Webb's motion. Councillor Aspden.
For.
Councillor Eyre.
For.
Councillor Baker.
For.
Councillor Barker.
For.
Councillor Barnes.
For.
Councillor Carr.
For.
Councillor Craghill.
For.
Councillor Crawshaw.
For.
Councillor Colwick.
For.
Councillor Cuthbertson.
For.
Councillor de Gorn.
For.
Councillor Daubeny.
For.
Councillor Doherty.
For.
Councillor Douglas.
For.
Councillor Fenton.
For.
Councillor Fisher.
For.
Councillor Fitzpatrick.
For.
Councillor Galvin.
For.
Councillor Heaton.
For.
Councillor Hollier.
For.
Councillor Hook.
For.
Councillor Hunter.
For.
Councillor Kilbane.
For.
Councillor Lomas.
For.
Councillor Mason.
For.
Councillor Melly.
For.
Councillor Musson.
For.
Councillor Myers.
For.
Councillor Norman.
For.
Councillor Orrell.
For.
Councillor Pavlovic.
For.
Councillor Pearson.
For.
Councillor Perrott.
For.
Councillor Rowley.
For.
Councillor Runciman.
For.
Councillor Smalley.
For.
Councillor Dave Taylor.
For.
Councillor Callum Taylor.
For.
Councillor Vassey.
For.
Councillor Waller.
For.
Councillor Wan.
For.
Councillor Waters.
For.
Councillor Wardby.
For.
Councillor Webb.
For.
Councillor Widdowson.
For.
That was a 4, yeah. Sorry, didn't hear Councillor Widdowson. I'm assuming it's a 4.
For.
Yeah.
Yes, it was a 4. Okay.
Yep, thanks. Lord Mayor.
4.
That's everyone, unanimous.
So that is a unanimous, very positive response to a very important motion. Thank you very much. That concludes the motions. It is 9:15 by the clock by which I'm guided. We now embark on questions. As I've said, I've wrapped up the whole question area. We have 35 minutes. Can I just say, I mean, I don't like to mute the executive, but I do sometimes feel that if answers go on a long time, it really cuts out the point of opportunities to ask questions. And so let our questions be to the point, let our answers be to the point. And if you need to go on a very long time, why not suggest that you may provide further information in a written format? I merely offer these suggestions. I am starting the clock now, and Councillor Kilbane was first on my list.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. This is a question to the Executive Leader. I noticed, Councillor Ashton, in your report, you're talking about 2,500 homes being built on the York Central site, which, I mean, as I'm sure you're aware, is a number that many people think is not deliverable on the land that's currently allocated to homes. However, in the past, you've always talked about up to 2,500 homes, but in this report, you're saying definitely 2,500 homes. Is that a shift in your position?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. No, it's not a shift in the position, which represents obviously the plan to build up to, or as you say, the endeavour to make sure that 2,500 homes is on that site. Now that it has both outline and reserve matters planning approval, we'll now see particularly Homes England and Network Rail through the partnership bring forward phases of development, which will include all the different types of housing available. And I'd very much welcome working with the Labour group, particularly to unlock all of our aspirations in terms of higher standards, whether that be zero carbon homes or more social housing than the minimum levels required.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Colwick.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm confident that I certainly wouldn't have been the only member to really welcome the commitment expressed by the executive last year to invest in play areas in the city. So my question is really for the executive member for culture, leisure, and communities. I really would like to have an update on that. Is that possible, please?
If I may, Lord Mayor.
Yeah, you answer if you've got an answer.
I happen to have one. Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you to Councillor Colwick for that very pertinent question. Sadly, we all, as elected members, know of play areas in our communities that are looking a bit tired and could do with some much needed TLC. I hope members would agree that we need to stop the slide in the quality of our children's play areas. I'm delighted that this administration has swung into action in offering this funding to complement and work with other community partners to support their projects. Investment in play areas has seesawed between good investment and decades of neglect, and I'm pleased that we're righting these wrongs. The 100k Challenge Fund announced last week is part of the £250,000 investment that will go a long way to improve the council's play areas and will support local community groups in making big improvements. This fund opens today for applications. I'm glad that we've stepped off the turntable of continued decline and jumped onto the springy chicken of significant play area investment. Now, we've heard a lot about level playing fields recently, but hopefully this funding will help provide some level playing areas. Together with colleagues from across the council, I look forward to updating and creating new play areas across our communities. Parish and town councils, friends of groups and community organisations can apply from today up to the 28th of February 2021. And for details and for the link to apply, I'll direct people to the council's website at york.gov.uk/play area improvements. Thank you, Lord Mayor. I hope they managed to hear that URL.
Yeah. I forgot to say, if you've got a supplementary, please put your hand up, not your blue hand, your physical hand up. Right. Sorry? Councillor Webb. Oh, and Councillor David Taylor is also waving at me. Councillor Webb.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Apologies, I'm going around about the houses here, Councillor Smalley, but I'm going to actually go back to Councillor Aspden's point from earlier because we missed our opportunity for supplementary.
You did, yes. No, my fault.
Thank you. Essentially, after the council's handling of this scheme led the government to unusually give the infrastructure funding to other bodies, the leader appears to now be advocating eating into commercial land on York Central to place even more focus on unaffordable apartments at the expense of much needed jobs for York residents. And I do take into account what he said earlier about, you know, potentially looking at affordable housing and things, but actually there's no commitment to that. Given that council will soon be asked to provide a £35 million loan to enable this project, and this loan is to be underwritten by business rates income, how can the leader justify his approach of, once again, increasing the financial risk to the City of York Council?
Right, Councillor Aston.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. It's just as well I was listening then. I was drifting off into play equipment. I don't agree with the assertions that Councillor Webb is making in his supplementary question. A couple of points. Yes, the council made a decision a while ago to borrow, and that was set against obviously the achievement of an enterprise zone. That means that you get future uplift and benefits from business rates. And obviously they becoming a housing zone and then an enterprise zone were some of the major steps forward in actually unlocking the York Central site. The fact that it's an enterprise zone is where the benefit comes into the council of borrowing money, obviously generating that space to get that future income back. Obviously, it's great news that going back to Councillor Doughty's earlier comments, that the government in the budget gave York Central 77 million on top of significant funding from a range of public sector workers, and again, public sector organisations rather. I hope the Labour group welcomes that funding, welcomes the fact that we've achieved progress and that planning application, because the difference is if you don't get the site over the line, you won't see any of the houses, any of the social housing, any of the regeneration, any of the cultural benefits, or the new National Railway Museum that is obviously hugely important for York. But as per my earlier comment to Councillor Kilbane, very happy to work with you through the details and as the development progresses over many years to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor David Taylor, you had a supplementary. I hope it was on play.
Yeah, it's Dave, Lord Mayor, but thank you. I enjoyed Daryl's playground fun with puns very much, but I just wanted to give him the opportunity to reiterate the website URL because I'm not sure any of us caught it.
If I may, Lord Mayor, thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Taylor, for the question. It is york.gov.uk/play area improvements. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I'm sure you can put that up online to those of us who take hours to write anything down. Right, I've got Councillor Crawshaw next.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Can I just clarify, we're on questions to all exec members now, is that
questions
correct?
to anybody you
to
like.
Anybody, thank you. Apologies, I thought there was a section for leader and then a section for everyone.
You can ask anybody anything.
Fantastic. In which case, I'd like to ask Councillor Eyre, as the exec member for Economy and Strategic Planning, Make It York's inward investment operation helped attract just 18 jobs as a result of foreign investment last year. Do you think that meets with the council's expectations?
Councillor Crawshaw, I am not the executive member for the economy or strategic planning.
Do apologise that I.
Who is?
It would be Councillor Waller, wouldn't it?
It's me. There was a new paper on inward investment which came to my most recent decision session, and it's something that there will be a great focus on, clearly in the run-up to an uncertain Brexit, and we're still not sure what that is. The issue of investment has been rather troubled, but I'm happy to work with scrutiny on this. Okay.
Thank you very much. Councillor Crawshaw, is that a supplementary?
Yeah, thank you. So you seem to be agreeing that it's a very poor record and clear that the inward investment isn't getting the attention that it deserves through Make It York. So I'm wondering if you could explain how the city is going to get serious on inward investment so that York starts to compete with other major cities in creating new and better paid jobs opportunities for all of York's residents.
This will be part of the economic strategy which is being developed, but I'm certainly working very closely with officers on where we can get opportunity for inward investment.
Thank you very much. Councillor Douglas, is that a supplementary?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'd just like to ask the executive member whether for him to confirm whether he believes an improved commitment to inward investment requires it being brought back in-house, because it's just not getting the attention that it deserves at Make It York. And I think it's about time that we saw a refocus of that area. Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I would refer Councillor Douglas to my comments of the ECDOS scrutiny meeting 27th of March 2015, which I expressed a number of issues in relation to the rather hurried way in which Make It York had been set up. So there are many lessons that need to be learned, and I'm sure will be included in the discussions that will set the new contract, which needs to come into place by the 31st of March and was discussed at Executive on Tuesday.
Thank you very much. Right, next question, Councillor Lomas.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. This is a question for the Executive Member for Environment and Climate Change. Having abandoned a Lib Dem key pledge of the 2019 election to make York carbon neutral by 2030, can the executive members say whether the pledge was a mistake, whether it was purely designed to mislead the electorate, or if it was simply too much effort to achieve?
An interesting and fairly loaded question, I would call that. We have not abandoned any targets. We have not abandoned anything at all. What we have said is that we will, as CYC, hit 2030. And we, as you rightly know from the scrutiny committee that you were at the other night, will be working with lots of partners across the city to see how close and how quickly we can get the whole of the rest of the city involved in that, in making that target last for all of the city.
Thank you. Right. Yes, I've got a supplementary somewhere. Councillor Kilbane, I think. Yes.
Oh, thank you, Lord Mayor. Can the executive member then explain how the multi-storey car park that was been voted through planning recently fits with the downgraded Council Zero objective?
Councillor Kilbane, that's again a very interested and fairly pointed question. The car park is still going through planning, and it hasn't been decided whether or not it's actually passed through planning. So once people without prejudice actually decide whether the planning is going ahead or not, I will be able to comment on it.
Thank you very much. Councillor Waters, are you wishing to ask a question? Because if so, I'll put you on my list.
Yes, Lord Mayor, to ask a question.
Wait, I'll add you on because I was looking for a blue hand, but that's all right. You're on the list now. Councillor Barker.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. So recently the government have been saying there's an increased spending power for councils. Can the executive member for finance outline what funding we can expect from the government to increase said spending?
Thank you. I'll just follow the Lord Mayor's briefing and say practically nothing, but I think I'll just give a little bit more background in terms of that one. Yeah, so there was a lot of talk in the government about the potential 4.5% increase in spending power. We did allude that there would be additional funding coming from government, but the reality has been that that isn't the case. And as predicted, and I mentioned, I think at the last executive meeting, a burden is expected to fall on local taxpayers. So doing a little bit of researching, the LGC predicts about 75% of that 4.5% will come from taxpayers. 85%, according to the LGA, will come from local taxpayers. So the reality is there is no real new money coming from central government. It's an expectation that that spending power will come from rising council tax. And to respond to Councillor Doughty's comments, I think earlier on, in which he said council tax wouldn't go up, and it was in North Yorkshire areas, and it was perhaps the local council here in York that was putting that unfair burden in. North Yorkshire County Council itself has proposed a maximum council tax increase that it possibly can do. So I think it is a reality that the government is shifting focus onto local residents and the burden.
Thank you very much. Have I got a supplementary on that one? Right. Councillor Douglas. You were on my list. Are you still on my list as wanting to ask a question?
I can go ahead. Good. So this is a question for the Deputy Leader. With regard to the administration's boot out the door bumper payoff to the former Chief Executive, can the Deputy Leader explain how the Green Party's principles got so compromised that it became involved in such a scandal?
Point of order, Lord Mayor.
Who's answering this? Councillor Eyre? Oh, all right, sorry.
Can we get a view from the monitoring officer? I do not believe that is a question that should be asked. And I would expect the monitoring officer's comments, please. There are some very, very serious accusations made within that question.
Can I ask the monitoring officer to give me a quick rundown?
Lord Mayor, there is a matter that has been debated via a different committee, the Staffing Matters Committee, and it's currently with external audit. I think it would be inappropriate to comment any further.
What you're saying is if we wait for the external audit report to come back,
yes,
that will give us some guidance as to where we are with this issue.
Yes, Lord Mayor.
Point of order, Lord Mayor.
Who's shouting point of order? Oh, hello, yes.
Hello, Lord Mayor. I don't know if this is a thing, but just because the monitoring officer thinks it's inappropriate, does that mean if we want to, we can still take the risk and ask these important questions rather than carrying to brush under the carpet?
I think what we were saying was that it might be better. I'm not saying we should brush this under the carpet. I think there's some very interesting points that are being raised, but that there may be a more appropriate time to pick this issue up because it will be coming back as an audit report on the way in which the council has used its powers and its finances, and that might be the place at which we can, either at audit and governance or at full council, discuss the issue more fully. I think that was your view, Janie?
Yes, Lord Mayor.
That sounds to me at this stage reasonable, and I will move on to another question. Right, where am I up to? Councillor Hook.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Could the Deputy Leader outline why it is so crucial that we secure the funding from devolution?
Thank you. I think everyone is aware of the debate that's gone on about the sort of the two options and why it's so important we have maintain the authority within the City of York. But perhaps what gets lost in that discussion is the reason why we're in that position is that we have made a bid as in conjunction with North Yorkshire for a devolution deal for York and North Yorkshire as a new combined authority. And anybody who wants to know the full details can look at, there is information on our website. But just to sort of give you a little bit of a flavour of the sorts of things that
we are hoping over the coming investment over the coming 30 years would come from that devolution deal, there would be a £64 million York Place Fund, which would cover various developments, including the station frontage, Riverside Walkway, the very important Castle Gateway programme, the sort of world-class public space around Clifford's Tower. All those sorts of measures could be funded through that over the coming years. But also £175 million innovation Bio Yorkshire package for promoting biotech development and unlocking a significant amount of money for housing. So funding for a proportion of 20,000 homes, working with other public bodies such as the Ministry of Defence to secure that share of funding, which would include affordable homes such as the York Central that's been referred to. And also the quite significant, given the conversations we've just had about the importance of skills and tackling the climate emergency, a £10 million low carbon skills programme to upskill the existing workforce and develop the skills that we're going to need as we're applying in our retrofit programme and passive house developments for the city.
Thank you very much. Is there a supplementary on that? Can't see anything. Oh yes, Councillor Crawshaw.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Just a very quick one, and it's partly a supplementary to this, but also a comment for all the executive members. I think it would be really helpful if, in future, would you be prepared to, rather than ask pre-agreed questions with long answers that are obviously pre-written, just include that in your report, or perhaps circulate the pre-written answers in advance so that we can save time and ask some meaningful questions? That would be very helpful.
I will take that as a note. I will take that as a point to note. Councillor Callum Taylor.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, beautifully.
In recent years, as with major project management, the Lib Dems have also been the one constant when it comes to failures in children's services. In late 2016, the council was told by Ofsted that services supporting children in need of help and protection required improvement. Fast forward 3 or 4 years now, with the Lib Dems still running the council, and no services had deteriorated, got worse, declined. What steps have you taken to satisfy yourself that a subsequent examination by Ofsted of these important services won't return a bad assessment for the third time? And that's for the exec member for children and young people.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. You will remember that in 2016, it was not a Lib Dem that was in charge of children's services. Since that time, steps have been taken to improve areas that you refer to in a variety of ways within the structures that we have in the directorate.
Is that it?
That's it, Lord Mayor.
Right. Is there a supplementary on that one?
Lord Mayor, I
Yes.
think Councillor Webb.
Councillor Rowley.
And Councillor Webb, Lord Mayor, as well.
And Councillor Webb. Okay, Councillor Rowley.
Lord Mayor, I have a supplementary to the last question that was for the Deputy Leader, but I'm more than happy just to pass for Councillor Webb first and then come back to my supplementary.
Okay, we'll pick you up. Sorry if I didn't notice you last time. Councillor Webb.
Thank you, Councillor Rowley. Councillor Orrell, you are right. It wasn't a Liberal Democrat who was in that position that you're in now. However, in true Lib Dem fashion, you were propping up the Tories, so you were involved in the whole situation, I guess. I suppose the question I've got is given we've now passed more than 12 months since that last inspection, will yourself as executive member commit to ensuring that all members of this authority, and listening to what Councillor Fitzpatrick said earlier on about corporate parenting, it is all of our responsibilities to engage with this issue. Can you commit that we're all brought up to date with the steps taken to improve the council's handling of children in need of help and protection?
I think the simple answer, Lord Mayor, is yes.
Succinct and to the point.
Simple.
Yes, we will hold you to that, obviously, Councillor Orrell.
Of course, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Rowley, did you want to ask your supplementary?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. It was to the Deputy Leader, Councillor de Goin, in answer to your question you answered a moment ago. You made mention of the new railway frontage scheme. Part of that scheme is the demolition of the York Railway Institute band room, a band that has been serving the city of York for many years, and one that I am actually a member of. Would you be able to give any encouragement to band members that you will work alongside the RA to try and find a suitable band room to replace the one that's being demolished?
I'm very happy to support anyone who's affected by that development, as you suggest. I'm aware that efforts are being made, and I would very much support that effort to find a suitable premises. But obviously you can appreciate the constraints of the site make it difficult to create the sort of facilities without the loss of that facility, but obviously would want to try and support, well, certainly personally speaking, I would very much want to support live music in any case, and that is obviously a key aspect of what you have that you're making use of at the moment.
Thank you very much, Councillor de Goin. I've got Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Question to the Leader, because earlier the Leader acknowledged the first 2 UK confirmed pandemic cases in York early this year, and he also referred to the current Tier 2 restrictions imposed on York that's currently in place. Now, bearing in mind those comments and bearing in mind recent infection trends in York, will the Council Leader be lobbying government and York's higher education establishments for students to remain in their home cities, towns and villages, and indeed international countries after Christmas, to continue their courses remotely in much the same way as this council is currently functioning? Or will the Council Leader be making the same mistake as he made in July when publicly welcoming, well, actually encouraging 40,000 students from all over the UK and wider world to descend on York with predictable results? If the sensible path is not followed, then Tier 3 restrictions will beckon in the new year for York. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Who's answering that one?
I think that was to me, Lord Mayor.
Yes, it was you, Councillor Aston.
I think the first thing I would say, Councillor Waters, is I'm not going to demonise or attempt to segregate groups of people. It's not something I'm interested in doing, and I don't think it's particularly productive during a pandemic. I'd also like to take the opportunity to praise the work of our public health teams, partners in the NHS, and both universities, all schools in the city. I know that they have been absolutely working as hard as they can in difficult circumstances, and as we will have seen recently with the further rollout of testing. But of course, yes, they've been working under circumstances where national guidance changes. It changes quickly, and they're often having to play catch up. So my advice and certainly commitment through to January is to make sure that we're communicating that health guidance as quickly as possible. And we're taking very much a York approach. Sometimes we have to work together quicker on the ground than some aspects of government guidance dictate, such as the setting up of the local test and trace service. And that's certainly what we'll be looking to do again with the universities. I'm sure Councillor Waters will have seen the new guidance for schools and universities that I won't go into in detail, but we'll be working with them as partners across the city. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And you've got a supplementary, Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I do note, and I hope anybody watching has noted, that the question has not been answered. If, therefore, it is considered safe and acceptable for 40,000 students to descend back on this city in January, when will the council leader ask the council staff to actually grace this city with their presence again? Will they be coming back to work in January? If not, why not?
I think in my answer, Lord Mayor, I made it very clear that the council would follow national guidance from the government, the Department of Health and the Department of Education, but supplement that where they can locally. That includes that guidance on working from home, and that includes that guidance on how schools and universities can be COVID secure to make sure the importance of education can continue. But as I said, I'm not going to be dragged into an attempt to demonise any particular groups.
Thank you very much, Councillor Aston. Councillor Doughty.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. It's a question to the Executive Member for Culture, Leisure and Communities. With increasing problems at Make It York and concerns of a lack of accountability, can the Executive Member outline the specific directional differences he as a board member believes the company should take?
Thank you very much, Councillor Doughty, for that question, and thank you, Lord Mayor. I think obviously I've only recently joined the board. Throughout COVID, the board has been meeting virtually, but I have enjoyed getting to meet the board members in a new and interesting way. Obviously, Councillor Doughty will be aware that as a TechL company, just like many TechL companies up and down the country, everyone follows the TechL compliant procedures and makes sure that governance arrangements are followed as appropriate. I would invite Councillor Doughty to take keen interest in the ongoing SLA discussions and contract discussions that will be scheduled for executive around February time, where once again, the governance procedures around Make It York will be reviewed in their full. And I'm happy to actually meet with Councillor Doughty if he has any questions regarding this.
Have I got a supplementary on that one? Councillor Doughty, yes, a supplementary.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. If the Councillor Smalley doesn't feel he's sufficiently briefed as a board member, would the other council executive board member like to answer that question I made, please?
Councillor Runciman.
No, it's not me.
I'm the other council.
You were waving.
It was a supplementary, Lord Mayor, to a question answered by Councillor Smalley. So you have to give it back to Councillor Smalley.
Yes, that's right, not me.
All right. No, you were just waving at me. So I was
I don't think so, Lord. I will wave if you want, but I wasn't doing it.
Councillor Doughty rephrases.
Do you have anything you wish to add to that reply?
Well, the supplementary wasn't directed at me, despite it should have been so. But
then
again, perhaps my answer does.
I've already got a hell of a lot of people. I've got 3 minutes in which I'm going to take questions before we run out of time. I have seen everybody's hand. I know all of you who are putting your hands up. I just can't do all of them in the 35 minutes we had. So I will take, I think this will be my last question. Councillor Musson.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. You're all right. Just firstly to echo what someone's already said, I think it's quite insulting to the public that we're taking up this time that should be accountability for the executive members with pre-written questions and pre-written answers. I don't know if your email systems are all broken, but clearly you could be publishing these basically well-placed bragging questions on social media instead, and allowing people to ask questions that are genuinely trying to hold our leadership to account. My question is for the executive member for transport, and it is that now we're a year since the council resolved to develop a plan to reduce non-essential car journeys in the city centre and remove them altogether from within the walls by 2023. And I wanted to ask, for the benefit of Green voters and other voters who are interested in the effectiveness of the Green Party in power, can you detail what steps you've taken thus far to progress this policy that you backed 12 months ago?
Councillor de Gorne.
Thank you, Councillor Musson. Well, firstly, I would say you might have noticed that we've been dealing with the pandemic and before that floods. So the sort of the officers have had some other priorities as well as what we set out as a policy. Well, we supported a policy which you put forward this time last year. Majority of that time since then, as I say, has been taken up with dealing with floods and a pandemic. But needless to say, in spite of that, we have taken advantage of the government funding for the Active Travel Fund. There's a number of measures that have been put forward as part of that. Some of those on a pilot basis. We have also put in place the policies which will be developed through the local transport plan refresh in the coming year. That was originally, as you will know, that was originally due to take place starting in April, but was delayed because of the pandemic. So we, in spite of what's been happening, we've taken advantage of government funding to put in place sustainable travel. We've also, as has been referred to earlier on, continued with the clean air zone, which makes public transport more attractive and also means that we can have a clean air within our city and tackle the health crisis that's caused by the pollution from the transport that we currently have as the way in which we operate. So obviously, as you said, I don't want to take up a lot of time going into all the detail, but there are a number of programs that we have got underway, as you'll be aware, and those that have been developed or are developing at the present time.
Right, that was, according to my clock, the last question, but I will take a supplementary just to round that one off. So, Councillor Crawshaw, you've raised your hand.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. I think the concern, Councillor de Gorne, is that we're doing a lot of tinkering around the edges and we're doing a lot of piecemeal interventions. And what the motion last year really called for was a whole strategic approach across the city, so that when funding does become available, we're shovel ready with bits of plans, but actually people can see a coherent whole. And I think perhaps some of the discussion that was had earlier on this evening around the motion that the Conservatives brought, if we had had a plan in place around sustainable transport that we could point to, then some of that intervention that they were calling for to support the city centre in January and February of this coming 2021, we'd be able to point to how it fits into that longer term plan. My concern is that you may not have the full support of your colleagues in developing that holistic approach. And so I just wonder if you could reassure us that everybody who within the council is signed up to this holistic plan, and that a plan will be in place before we get to devolution, where we perhaps lose control of the strategic direction of transport planning in the city.
Well, certainly I appreciate your concerns and would very much support cross-party working on this issue. As you know, we have already had a number of discussions about the way in which we approach this, and we're taking advantage of the benefits of the organisations like York Civic Trust and the expertise that we have within the city to look at options for sustainable travel. In terms of a plan, as I said earlier, we did have a pandemic, and part of our response to that has been the 1-year transport and recovery plan, which, as you will yourself know, has been somewhat controversial, but has nevertheless meant that businesses have been able to open and to survive in the very difficult economic circumstances that they face in the city centre. And that is something which we've currently agreed to extend till September next year, to allow for that longer term view about our city centre, and that obviously will be part of that overall strategy for the city centre. But there's a wider picture, as you say, which will also be developed for our overall transport strategy that ties in with the local plan.
We have very really come to an end of this question session, and we have come to an end to the business. We have been amazing, actually, absolutely amazing. I take my hat off to all of you. I'm sorry, those of you who've still got your blue hands raised. You can sit like that till February, if you like, and leave your hands, and we'll pick them up when you come back in February. But it may be that we need to look at a different set of questions then. But thank you all very much for some really very positive cooperation and contributions. I think we've all learned a lot. And can I take this opportunity to say, can we all have, within our very safe spaces, not doing anything reckless with our mad numbers of family visitors, to have a very good Christmas. So thank you very much, everybody. And I'm going home for, you can at least all just go and sit comfortably and get the wine out, but I've got to go home. But thank you all very much, and the very best for Christmas and the new year. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet.
And to you, Lord Mayor. Everyone.